Alice and Aurelie were dragged by Mephisto and fell all the way to a place full of smoke and magma, surrounded by deformed monsters and wandering souls. However, when they saw Mephisto, they immediately scattered around, not daring to disturb the master of this hell dimension. Ah! Alice, who saw the surrounding scene, let out a mournful cry. Although she was terribly scared, she still stood in front of Aurelie tremblingly. Who are you? Where is this, here? Alice questioned Mephisto in front of her in a weak voice, and at the same time threatened with less confidence. You'd better let us go back quickly, or my brother won't let you go. Such a threat of no momentum can scare anyone at all, not to mention that Alice is facing Mephisto as the Lord of Hell. My name is Mephisto, and my hobby is to collect all kinds of interesting souls. Welcome to my hell dimension. Mephisto smiled and stroked his chest. Don't worry, I will invite your brother soon, because I need people to continue to create artificial souls like you. Ouch. At this time, Aurelie poked his head from behind Alice, then pointed at Mephisto and laughed. Uncle, you look so funny. Ha 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 ha. Allele, run. This person is a badass. As Aurelie looked at Mephisto's appearance curiously, Alice's hands passed under her armpits, holding her and turned her head and ran. Ouch. Aurelie tilted her head to look at Alice with a panic face, a little bit confused as to why she wanted to run away. What kind of bad guys, isn't it just fine to fly? Both Brother Kraft and Sister Angela taught this way. But Aurelie did not struggle, letting Alice run around holding herself because this is also very interesting. Ha 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 ha. Run faster, run faster. Aurelie smiled and cheered for Alice. On the other hand, Mephisto did not rush to chase Alice. Unlike on Earth, in this hell dimension dedicated to him, he can almost be said to be omnipotent, and these two artificial souls cannot escape him at all. Palm. Roar roar roar. If the physiological reactions in the mechanical body made by Kraft are partly due to programming, then Alice's current breathlessness is a personal experience that is too real to be real. But at this time, Alice could have no thoughts to recall this feeling like a human being. She hugged Aurelie and hid behind a big rock, and then carefully poked her head out and looked back. Ha ha ha. That uncle didn't chase him. Aurelie climbed onto Alice's back, folded her head on her head, and went out together. Shush. Be quiet. Alice covered Aurelie's mouth, raised her index finger to her mouth, and lowered her voice to warn. We are now in a state of soul, and we no longer have the original robot body. Ouch. Aurelie held her little face and lifted it up forcefully. Ha ha ha. I really can't pull it off. Didn't I speak in a low voice? Alice was so anxious that her tears burst out, and her voice rose a little bit. Aurelie, you can't beat that demon now. As long as my brother finds out something is wrong, he and Ancient One Magician will come to save us, so now I can't be discovered by that demon. Ha ha ha. The idea is good, but it's a pity that this hell dimension is mine. There is nothing happening here that can be hidden from me. I can easily find it no matter where you escape. Along with a burst of black smoke, Mephisto appeared beside Alice and Aurelie. He tortured them little by little, wanting to see if this artificial soul, like a human soul, could give him power in despair. Woo. Hey. When she saw Mephisto appear in front of her, Alice was so scared that she took a half step back, and then she mustered up the courage, closed her eyes and threw her fist at Mephisto. But it is a pity that Alice is no different from a normal little girl in her soul state. Mephisto just stretched out her finger and flicked it, and Alice flew upside down and fell heavily beside Aurelie. Ah. Alice clutched her aching arm, her eyes filled with tears. Although Alice's mechanical body usually has pain, it is a virtual pain feedback from the program. She only needs to remove the painful part and can't feel it. But it is different in the state of the soul. The pain of this feedback on the soul is more profound than the injury of ordinary human beings. I am angry. Seeing Sister Alice being bullied by the weird uncle in front of her, Aurelie lost her smile for the first time on her small face. She pursed her lips and looked at Mephisto, and then took a deep breath. How are you? Whoops. Ha 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 ha. Mephisto laughed wildly. After a period of observation, he had long discovered that the purple-haired robot seemed to have a problem with his head, so he kindly explained to Aurelie, wanting to make Aurelie also fall into despair. Didn't that little girl just say that you have no mechanical bodies now? Whether it is your good artillery or that strange power, you no longer have it. But who is Aurelie, who has always been accustomed to doing her own way? She didn't pay attention to Mephisto's verbal attack at all, and rushed towards him with a sway of her arm. And Mephisto didn't care about Aurelie's attack at all. He buckled his index finger again, trying to fly Aurelie up like Alice. But before Mephisto had time to raise his hand, he found that Aurelie had rushed in front of him, jumped up and shook her small fist against his stomach. Why is she so fast? Mephisto's head just flashed this thought, and he felt a sharp pain in his abdomen, and at the same time, Aureli's clear drink came from his ear. Drink. Boom. Call out. Mephisto instantly turned into a black-red sharp arrow, which flew backwards with a powerful force of thunder. After crashing through many mountains and flying for unknown kilometers, Mephisto finally stopped after crashing into a stone castle. Coincidentally, he also broke the load-bearing pillar of the castle, and after a roar, Mephisto was buried in a pile of rocks. Who dared to attack the great Sulfrons? The owner of the castle is considered a demon with a name in this hell, otherwise he would not have a castle of his own. Sulfrons roared and pushed away the stone that was pressing on him, looking left and right. Master Sulfrons, I saw that the attacker seemed to be buried in the pile of rocks. An evil slave pointed at the place where Mephisto was buried, and reported flatteringly to his owner. Huh. I want to see, who the hell is he who dares to provoke me? Sulfrons stretched out his huge amounts of claws, and pulled away all the stones covering Mephisto. Then he was dumbfounded. Lord Mephisto? After seeing the figure exposed under the stone, Sulfrons weakened his legs and knelt on the ground. But soon, he keenly discovered that Mephisto in front of him seemed to be seriously injured. Sulfrons became excited again, his kneeling movement changed, and he rushed directly to Mephisto. As long as he can take the opportunity to kill Mephisto, he can seize Mephisto's power and become the new lord of this hell. This kind of good thing, as long as it is a demon, will not refuse. However, even if Mephisto was seriously injured, he was not something a demon of this level could covet. He stared at Saffrons, who was leaping towards him with cold eyes, silently mobilizing his strength, and first quickly recovered his right arm. Pissed. As Saffrons squeezed Mephisto's neck fiercely, and was about to break it with force, Mephisto's right palm also penetrated Saffron's chest. No blood flowed out of the chest pierced by Mephisto, because Sulfrons's flesh and blood along with his power were all absorbed by Mephisto through his arm. Suffering from Sulfron's flesh and blood as a nourishment, Mephisto's injuries are also quickly recovering. An idiot. Sulfrons, who was sticking it in his arm, had been sucked dry, and it was directly turned into a cloud of fly ash and disappeared. Mephisto stood up from the ruins with a sullen face. He didn't expect that the robot named Aureli had such terrifying power in the soul state. This is so unscientific. Don't look at Mephisto's magic tricks. He belongs to a big man with a name and a surname on the mysterious side. In fact, he also knows some scientific knowledge. Although it was just what he used to learn when he was bored in his long life, with Mephisto's wisdom and sufficient time, the scientific knowledge that Mephisto mastered would not be lost to the average level of professors. Definitely is incomparable to Stark and Osborn. This is the first time Mephisto has encountered technology that can have an impact on something like the soul. And it's not magic, because even Mephisto himself could not use magic to give a soul such unreasonable power. Mephisto became more and more interested in the soul of Aureli and the technology that Kraft mastered. It's just that he can't do anything about Aureli now. As for Kraft, he once looked at it from a distance. The kid was covered with layers of Kamar Taj protection spells. The depth of it seemed to come from hand of Ancient One. Mephisto even doubted whether Kraft was a descendant of Ancient One. Regardless of whether Kraft is a descendant of Ancient One, Mephisto's main thing now is to find a way to solve the soul of the little robot girl named Aureli. As a cunning and cautious demon by nature, Mephisto definitely will not continue to trouble Aureli when he knows he can't deal with it. So Mephisto used his authority as the Lord of Hell to place a wanted warrant in the entire hell, intending to let other hell creatures replace him to test and tempt. On the other side, after flying Mephisto, Aureli bowed her arms proudly and put on a classic Hercules shape, and then ran to Alice's side and held her up. Okay. So amazing. Aureli, you are so amazing. Alice stared blankly at the big hole in the distant mountain that was hit by Mephisto for a while, and then she hugged Aureli in surprise, stroking her head and complimenting her winning streak. Ha ha ha. I was performed by Sister Alice. Aureli, who was praised, laughed happily with hands on hips. After rubbing Alal's head for a while, Alice asked curiously, Alale, how did you do it? You are clearly in the soul state now. With that said, Alice tried to pull Alal's head, but still couldn't take it off. Ouch. Aureli scratched his head, unable to understand Alice's meaning. It's your strength. Why is it still so great? Alice wants to understand the principle of Aureli's ability to retain a part of ability, so as to restore some of the original function. Although Aureli can kill the quartet, this is hell after all. Even if Alice can't help, she doesn't want to drag Aureli's hind legs. My strength is already great. Aureli still didn't understand what Alice was talking about, and replied cheerfully, Aureli is amazing. Yes, Aureli is the best. Seeing that Aureli herself can't tell the reason, Alice can only figure it out for herself. Although her personality is a bit natural, she still has no problem with her intelligence originally. So after thinking about it, Alice speculated that Aurelie can retain the strange power because she believed that the strange power belongs to her from the beginning, so it reflected in the soul. The biggest difference between Alice and Aurelie is that she has always wanted to be an ordinary human. Although after having the two robot sisters Angela and Aurelie, Alice is a little less persistent in this regard, but she is still used to concealing her robot's identity. So this is most likely the reason why her soul has no special circumstances. To put it simply, it is the so-called idealism. Whether this speculation is correct or not, Alice is actually not sure, but it is still the reason mentioned earlier. In such a dangerous place as hell, Alice does not want to hinder Aurelie. So Alice closed her eyes and tried to tell herself in her heart, I am a robot, I am a robot, I am a robot. Although her guess of Aurelie is not accurate, Alice is right in one thing. Her soul will be no different from human beings. The biggest reason is that she has been treating herself as an ordinary person, which led to her soul. A certain degree of change has also taken place. So when Alice began to recognize her true identity, her soul began to return to its original state. With her eyes closed, Alice faintly heard the sound of the machine running, and the voice became clearer and clearer. That's amazing. Sister Alice is so handsome. Aurelie suddenly happily got up with roar. Alice suddenly opened her eyes. Am I successful? She couldn't wait to grab her arm and tugged. The arm was motionless, the imaginary machine gun did not appear, and a mechanical turning sound of caca came from behind her. Difficult, can it be said? Alice suddenly remembered her brother's nasty design when she was first made. Aurelie, is there something more behind me? Crying without tears, Alice confirmed to Aurelie. It's clockwork, super handsome. Aurelie, with eyes full of small stars, destroyed all Alice's fluke. Ah. Alice let out a mournful cry, plopped and fell to her knees, beating the ground unwillingly. Why is it clockwork? Isn't this useless at all? Ouch. Aurelie tilted her head, wondering what her sister was saddening. However, as a good boy with a reputation, Aurelie still stepped forward and stroked Alice's head. You're so good, you don't cry or cry. When Ancient One opened the portal to hell, what he saw was such a weird picture. When Kraft said, let Aurelie have fun, Ancient One was really puzzling. Didn't you jump up and down in a hurry before, and even angered me? How come you suddenly look like the unlucky person is actually Mephisto? At this time, even Angela was stunned, because when Kraft was observing Aurelie's soul, the soul gem was not yet in Angela's hands, so she had no idea about Aurelie's soul. And Kraft didn't mention it specifically, and even for a long time he forgot about it. Elder brother. Angela, who didn't know the situation, hurriedly turned around Kraft. Relax. Kraft comforted Angela, and then explained to her an Ancient One after she calmed down a little bit. Alare's strength is still the same in the soul state. Well, it's a bit big, so Mephisto, I can't ask for a cheap one. The corners of Ancient One's mouth twitched twice. That girl's strength is not a bit big at all, hello. However, even the soul state has that kind of terrifying strange power. This kid Kraft really made an incredible robot. Angela breathed a sigh of relief. She knew the special features of Aurelie. After all, the mechanical body made by the same technology could not achieve the level of Aurelie's mechanical duplication. But after calming down, Angela had new worries. What about Sister Alice? There shouldn't be any special ability in her soul, right? As far as Aurelie's character is concerned, I am worried that she will not protect Sister Alice well. Well, please trouble Grandma Ancient One to bring Alice's soul back first. Kraft thought about it, so he asked Ancient One for help, but because of Aurelie's confidence, his tone was much easier, and he used the ridiculous name of Ancient One Grandma, again as roar. So definitely, Kraft had a brainstorm with Ancient One again. But, it's not good to just leave Aurelie in the hell, right? Angela is particularly concerned about Aurelie's things, or I'll go to hell with Ancient One Magician. There's Allah. Lay and Soul Gem are next to each other, there shouldn't be any problems. Yeah. Kraft slapped his thigh. With Aurelie here, what are we worried about? I'm also very interested in hell. Kraft began to organize his equipment, and planned to go to hell with Ancient One. He even planned to record the coordinates of the hell. When he was fine in the future, he could open a portal by himself and take Aurelie and the others to stroll around. After all, it is hard to find a place where Aurelies can enjoy themselves. Compared to the parallel world, the hell dimension seems to be a better choice. Speaking of which, Ancient One once mentioned a dark dimension to him. Kraft seems to have found a new way to coax his sister. However, in the next second, Ancient One put out Kraft's imagination. You don't know how to use spells. You can't survive for long in the hell dimension. Even if you use your armor, it's not very protective. This is related to the characteristics of the entire hell dimension, where all living creatures except hell creatures are excluded, unless you still have a soul gem. Repelling the living. Kraft was taken aback for a moment, and then asked curiously, "What about the robot?" Ancient One was silent. After all, there has never been any robot with a soul before, so even she has ignored it. In fact, as long as Alice and their bodies are brought to hell together, the matter can be easily resolved. When things have reached this point, there is naturally nothing to say. Kraft retrieved the soul gem from Ancient One. Angela entered the mechanical duplication, then took the bodies of Alice and Aurelie, and followed Ancient One into the portal to hell. Then they saw Alice bending forward in frustration and Aurelie who was touching her head. Probably the special environment of the hell dimension. Even if at the moment soul gem is no longer on Angela, she can still see the two good sisters in the soul state. "Oh? Alice, your clockwork grew out. How did this happen?" Kraft saw the conspicuous clockwork on Alice's back at a glance, and now he was not in a hurry to take out Alice's body, but a desire to explore this magical change arose. "Goo!" Alice wailed again, "Brother. And Angela. Why are you all here?" Alice, who had been looking forward to Kraft's rescue before, turned back now. She stood up in a panic, with her hands behind her back, trying to cover the huge amounts of clockwork. Caca. So immortal, the clockwork behind her turned again incoordinated. Is this clockwork that Sister Alice already has? Angela curiously looked at the clockwork that was still turning, caca, and asked curiously. Angela and Aurelie, who were created later, naturally didn't know about Alice's dark history. Alice's original design drawings had already been deleted by Kraft, and the only ones left in the computer were constantly updated. The latest version of. Knowing that her dark history can no longer be concealed, Alice finally stopped resisting, and replied in a self-deprecating manner. "When my brother first made me, he did make such a clockwork. I don't know the use of designing it." Speaking of this, Alice glared at Kraft angrily, then she puffed her cheeks, and roar complained angrily. Obviously, it was only installed for such a short time, and it was quickly removed. Why is it still reflected in my soul? So, how did this clockwork appear? Kraft, who entered the state of research, broke the casserole and asked to the end. Alice pouted, and reluctantly told Kraft her own speculation and attempts. "Well, your guess is not entirely wrong. Human souls will indeed make some changes based on their perceptions of themselves, but this change will not be too great." Ancient One, who has the most say among several people, gave Alice an example. For example, the most obvious example is that most people's souls after death are presented in their temporary clothing, and occasionally they appear most often. Wear our favorite clothing. So, this clockwork stayed as the original appearance of Alice's soul? The mysterious thing is interesting, Kraft continued to ask. Then their other physical conditions are not reflected in the soul? Kraft had confidently observed the soul states of Alice and Aurelie before. Except that Aurelie's strength was as unscientific as before, there was no feature of a robot. Regarding Kraft's question, Ancient One reluctantly spread his hands. "How do I know this question? I don't know how to be a robot with a soul." Kraft. "Well, this reason is very good, he can only reluctantly give up the plan to continue to study." Opening the omnipotent capsule, releasing the bodies of Alice and Aurelie, Kraft reached out and grabbed the two sisters in the state of soul, and the souls of Alice and Aurelie flew into his hands lightly. Recalling the operation method when using soul gem before, Kraft grabbed the souls of the two sisters and stuffed them into their bodies. "Ha! I'm finally back." Alice touched her empty back and let out a sigh of relief, but there was a hint of unspeakable melancholy in her heart. Ouch. Aurelie, who returned to her body, blinked, then grabbed her head and pulled it up. "Ha ha 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 ha. I can pull my head off again, all right." As the older brother, Kraft slapped his hands and said to the three younger sisters, "The first hell sightseeing tour of the Dreamland Brigade has officially begun." Alice, Angela, and Aurelie cooperated face to face, and raised their right fists together. "Oh." Ancient One looked at the four cheerful little guys in front of him. "My real name loves Mephisto. And all the hell creatures in this dimension." A week later, in the original territory of a hapless demon, Kraft was conducting research on demons and other hell creatures in his portable laboratory. Since this hell-breaking dimension is scorched earth other than magma, there is really nothing to go shopping. After a few waves of demons who didn't know why they came to look for things, Kraft simply found a place that looked good and established it. A temporary residence. Because no matter what kind of demons, they almost have one or two spells, so Kraft wondered if he could find a way to solve his inability to learn magic from them. And his three sisters also chose to continue to stay with Kraft after strolling through the hell. Angela is naturally needless to say. Aurelie can find fun no matter where she is, not to mention a place like hell where she can have fun. Alice is also very satisfied, Just give her a TV that can watch soap operas. Alright. Then the demons of hell got bad luck. Through the propaganda of the demons who came to make trouble before, they already knew that Kraft and his party were not easy to deal with, but they couldn't hold them back to find the door by themselves. In addition to helping Kraft collect different kinds of demons for him to study, Aurelie usually finds those demons who look more handsome to play games with. And these demons naturally refused to sit and wait for death. Although they couldn't beat them, they could escape. So in hell, a vigorous game of hide and seek was set off. Ha 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 ha. Brother, take a look. I have caught a new kind of demon again. Aurelie dragged a demon with black scales and 4 horns on his head, rushing from a distance. This demon, whose head is bigger than the entire Aurelie, is like an obedient puppy in Aurelie's hands. Even if he was dragged back from hundreds of kilometers away by Aurelie's ears, he still kept a flattering smile, for fear of bumping into the terrible little girl in front of him. Oh, throw that first, I'll see it later. Kraft buried his head in the laboratory and said to Aurelie without looking back. Yes. Aurelie raised the demon in his hand and threw him to a clearing next to him. There were no barriers, such as fences, or guards around this clearing, but there was a circle of weird demons sitting inside. They all stayed in the clearing incomparably well behaved, and had no intention of running away. Oh, it's Locaster, you are here too. A demon with a head like a lion and a lot of thick red manes around it beckoned roar to the new demon. The new demon Locaster sighed. Yes, I obviously hid in my most secret hiding place, or I was found by Lord Aurelie. Locust is still very confident in his attainments in hidden magic, but unfortunately this kind of confidence ran into the unreasonable Aurelie, who has no resistance at all. I seem to have seen that Master Kraft handed Master Aurelie a strange instrument a few days ago, and then the demons who joined us in the past few days have suddenly increased. There were other demons nearby who joined the conversation between the two. Master Kraft's invention is really unreasonable and terrible. The devil who said this had a complicated expression, and it was obviously because of Kraft's loss. But the most terrifying thing is really Lord Aurelie, right? Master Angela is also very strong. Hee, haven't you seen the scene where Master Aurelie smashed Land's lair to pieces with a punch? By the way, isn't the fellow Landers caught? The old nest has been demolished. Why not? It's just that the idiot couldn't see the form after he was caught, and he spoke rudely to Lord Alice, then was hung up and beaten by Lord Angela, and finally sent to Lord Kraft's laboratory, and never again. I've been out. Speaking of which, although Lord Aurelie is strong, it seems that she hasn't really killed anyone yet. It was either Lord Kraft or Lord Angela who shot. A group of fierce demons, at the moment, can only stay obediently in an unsuspecting open space. You talk to the sky every word. Is this family really human? How can one be more scary than the other? A certain demon sighed with emotion, and then the other demons all sighed together. They never thought that they would be captive by a few human cubs. The demons were silent for a moment, and suddenly there was a skinny old demon in a tattered gray robe that let out a hoarse low laugh. Now the most anxious one should be our Lord of Hell, Lord Mephisto? The spirits of the other demons also followed up with smirking laughter. Just as those gloating demons thought, Mephisto is very anxious now. It is no longer the question of whether he wants to study the soul of Aurelie, but the question of whether his Hell King can keep it. Although Mephisto is the master of the Hell dimension, the position of this master can be taken away. And there is more than one way to snatch it away. The easiest is naturally to defeat Mephisto, the current king of Hell, but I already know that Alal's terrible Mephisto will definitely not appear stupidly in front of Alale. But in addition to defeating the option of Mephisto, there is another way to gain the approval of most native Hell creatures, which is also the method Mephisto used when he first became the king of Hell. This is determined by the characteristics of the Hell dimension itself. Even if Mephisto has taken control of this dimension, this rule cannot be changed. As the king of Hell, Mephisto can't eliminate all the original creatures of this dimension, and must keep them above a certain base. Otherwise, although this dimension will not collapse, he will also lose the blessing of the dimension of Hell. The situation Mephisto is facing now is that he can't beat Aurelie, and can't stop Aurelie from looking for demons everywhere to play games. He can only watch her gradually conquer the native creatures of the Hell dimension, snatching the original creatures that belong to him. His authority. How did things get to this point? Mephisto was helpless and lost in thought. Originally, if Aurelie was still in the state of soul, Mephisto still had the confidence to deal with her. After all, he is a master of playing with the soul, and there are always special methods to deal with those more powerful souls. Just like the evil spirit Zatanos, he was not turned into a vengeful spirit in the end, and became his own tool. As a result, before Mephisto used other demons to detect Aurelie's weakness, Ancient One took their mechanical bodies to Hell, and followed Kraft and Angela, who were no less troublesome than Aurelie. Just like Ancient One, Mephisto has also fallen into the blind spot where robots and humans are different. He never thought that there would be this trick. It's a shame to bring the robot to hell. It was the first time that Mephisto felt that his own wisdom could not help. The existence of Arale was so incomprehensible that it could not be solved by conspiracy. Wait. Zatanos? Mephisto suddenly remembered the vengeful spirit he had thrown onto the earth, and the Ghost Rider he was possessing. On the desolate and barren land of the Hell Dimension, 3 little girls are driving a hell horse alone and galloping freely. All the hell creatures who saw these 3 little girls, not only did not rush to bite like human souls in the past, but were like frightened birds, hiding as far away as possible. These 3 girls are naturally Alice and their 3 sisters. Playing games with those handsome demons is Arale's hobby alone. If the little sisters take part in group activities, they usually choose horse racing or fishing. Ha 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 ha. Go. Arale stood directly on the back of the hell horse, and ran to the front with his hands high. Angela put on her pirate costume, holding the reins in one hand, and waving a small scimitar in the other, following her. Speed? Me up to catch up. Nightmare E. Wow. The one hanging from the back was Alice, who held the hell horse's neck firmly with her hands and yelled with her eyes closed. It's not that Alice doesn't like racing horses with her sisters, but that she is in such a state when she is racing. And because Alice was too excited when racing, the clockwork on her back kept spinning. For some unknown reason, Alice asked Kraft to return the clockwork, and Kraft was naturally happy to see her immediately. For this reason, Arale was still arguing for one. Kraft was so entangled by her that she was also annoyed. As a result, she just went out for a stroll and didn't know where the clockwork on her back went. Just as the 3 sisters rode horses and shared the prosperity of hell, there was a roar of motorcycles in the distance. Angela was the first to react. It was very strange to hear the sound of motorcycles in this place of hell. Alale, stop for a moment. Angela took the reins and yelled at Arale, and the hell warhorse carrying Alice saw Angela stop, and gradually slowed down and came to her side. Huh. Is it over? Alice opened her eyes when she felt the hell horse stop, and sat upright on the horse's back. At the same time, Arale also turned the horse's head obediently and returned to Angela's side. No, there is an unexpected guest here. Angela shook her head and pointed to Alice and Arale in the direction of the motorcycle sound. I saw a skeleton with a burning head riding a punk-shaped Harley motorcycle towards them. Wow. So handsome. The shape of Ghost Rider is in full compliance with Arale's handsome standard. She was already happy when she saw the flame skull in the skeleton motorcycle. Alice has been in hell for so long, and she is also immune to these weird-looking things, so she just looked at the flaming skeleton curiously. After all, after Arale's reputation opened up, few creatures in hell dared to approach them. The 3 little girls stared at Johnny Blazer, who came to them with big eyes, without any fear at all. But Johnny Blazer, as Ghost Rider, had a toothache. What a pitfall by Mephisto again. At first Johnny Blazer signed a sole trading contract with Mephisto because of his adoptive father's cancer. Later, although Roxanne's sudden intervention and escaped from Mephisto's hands, the power of his contract was still there, so he could not completely get rid of it. Mephisto. Although Mephisto can no longer forcefully take the soul of Johnny Blazer at this time, he must also regularly collect evil souls for Mephisto in exchange. But Johnny, who has long recognized Mephisto's sinister intentions, has always used a negative attitude to deal with the content of the contract. Except for occasionally destroying a criminal to calm the irritability of the evil spirits in his body, Johnny Blazer will basically only meet the minimum contractual limit. In normal conditions, he is just a salted fish, and he is safe to hide among ordinary people. Even if the Earth has undergone unprecedented changes in the past few years, and a bunch of inexplicable villains have appeared, he would not bother to take the initiative to attack, unless he is not good at shipping and bumps into Ghost Rider's hands. Otherwise he is simply too lazy to do it. What superhero? He has nothing to do with Ghost Rider from hell. Under the premise that both the official and Kamar Taj took the initiative to help conceal it, Johnny Blazer's small life on the Earth was actually quite comfortable. Until the first 2 days, Mephisto suddenly contacted him through a contract. As soon as he came up, Mephisto strongly condemned his passive sabotage, but Johnny Blazer, who is already in old fritters, didn't bother to pay attention to the King of Hell. But secretly, Johnny Blazer still increased his vigilance. He didn't think that Mephisto had contacted him through a contract after many years, just to urge himself to help him collect souls. Sure enough, Mephisto changed the subject shortly afterwards and proposed a new deal. If Johnny Blazer can solve an enemy for himself, he can reduce the number of souls turned in. Johnny felt a very well-concealed urgency from Mephisto's words, so he broke with Mephisto unhurriedly. Finally, under his hard negotiation, Mephisto signed a new contract with him. Johnny Blazer, at all costs, solved Mephisto's enemies who invaded the dimension of hell. After it was done, Mephisto set him free. Definitely if he fails, his soul must be given to Mephisto. Isn't it fair? At least it looks like this. Although the freedom of Zatannos was also included in the contract, Johnny Blazer hesitated a little. But the thought of Mephisto just stuffing it into his body casually, it is probably not an important thing, and the person who can invade hell must be very strong. Most of Mephisto wants Zatannos to cooperate fully. As for why Mephisto didn't solve the problem of invaders by himself, Johnny Blazer didn't have much doubt, because with Mephisto's character, this was really normal. As a result, Ghost Rider, who was dazzled by freedom, came to Aurelie and the others in such a stormy manner. The salted fish Johnny Blazer didn't know Aurelie, and didn't know how strong this little girl wearing glasses was, but he himself couldn't shoot such a little girl anyway. Who knows how to invade hell and make Mephisto feel a headache as a little girl under 10 years old? But the contract in Johnny Blazer clearly told him that the little girl in front of him was the goal he wanted to solve. Damn. Run away. I can't help myself. Feeling that the spirit of revenge in his body was starting to restless because of the power of the contract, Johnny Blazer hurriedly shouted to the 3 little girls riding the hell horse. However, the 3 little girls ignored his warning and still stayed in the same place stupidly. The purple-haired little girl who was the target also pointed at herself and laughed. Ouch. His whole body is burning, he is so handsome. Ghost Rider, whose reason had been gradually swallowed by Zatannos' will, let out a roar, threw out a flame-burning iron chain, and rolled it onto Aurelie's body. Ouch. Aurelie did not evade, letting the chains entangled on her body. Ha ha ha. I'm on fire too. The flames of the chain spread all over Aurelie's body, but it did not cause any harm to her. Instead, Aurelie smiled and showed off to the 2 sisters on the side. But soon the hell horse that Aurelie was riding screamed fiercely, but the Aurelie sitting on it was an existence that made it even more fearful, so the hell horse didn't dare to move at all, just let it go. Ghost Rider's hellfire burned himself. Thanks to the Hell Warhorse, it was originally able to manipulate the hellfire. Although it cannot be compared with the hellfire of Ghost Rider, it also saves it from being burnt to death at once. Don't bully my horse. With a slight effort, Aurelie broke the chain on her body. Then Aurelie, who was still flaming up and down, gently kicked on the horseback of the Hell Warhorse, jumped in front of Ghost Rider, raised a small fist and smashed it at him. At the moment, it was Zatannos, the ancient demon's consciousness that was in control of Ghost Rider's body. He roared and threw his fist at Aurelie as well. One big and one small, one white bones and one fleshy, but the 2 fists entwined with hellfire slammed together. After a brief silence, Ghost Rider, who was bigger and more vicious, took the evil spirit motorcycle under his ass, turned into a meteor, dragged a long tail flame, and flew with an invincible momentum. After flying that inexplicable Ghost Rider, Aurelie slapped his body at random to extinguish the hellfire, which can burn the terrible flames of the Hell Warhorse, even the thread on Aurelie's overalls, continuously. Knowing that the clothes on Aurelie's body are just 2 ordinary fabrics, Angela once again has a deeper understanding of her miraculous sister. Okay, let's go back. I was disturbed by the skeleton, and I'm not in the mood to continue playing. Angela clapped her hands and said to Alice and Aurelie. Although ranked second, under normal circumstances, the leader of the 3 sisters is Angela. After all, you can't expect Alice to be so natural to give orders. In contrast, Angela is much more reliable. She is sometimes temperamental. Sometimes, there will be a little noise. However, before the 3 little sisters could go back home, a portal formed by a vortex of flames appeared out of nowhere. Ghost Rider, who had been beaten up before, drove his evil spirit chariot and roared out of the door. Ha 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 ha. Seeing Ghost Rider appear again, Aurelie laughed cheerfully and greeted him excitedly. Boom. When he was about to collide with the evil spirit motorcycle, Aurelie jumped up, legs close together, and his body kicked sideways towards the Ghost Rider on the motorcycle. Zatannos raised his arms in time to block, but he was still kicked from the car by Aurelie, and once again turned into a meteor and flew into the distance. Go. Aurelie landed on the evil spirit motorcycle, grabbed the handlebar, and controlled the evil spirit motorcycle to rampage. For the Ghost Rider that has been beaten and flew by herself, Aurelie is no longer interested in it. Her attention is now on this motorcycle that fits her aesthetics. However, the evil spirit chariots all have their own will. They are a bit similar to the duplication of the vengeful spirit in Ghost Rider, and it is impossible to be controlled by anyone other than Ghost Rider. So although Aurelie is holding the handlebar of the motorcycle, the evil spirit motorcycle is scurrying around without her control. Ha 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 ha. Aurelie, who can find fun in anything, Doesn't care about this, anyway, she is having fun. The kicked Ghost Rider once again passed through the flame portal to Aureli's side. He jumped directly onto the front of the evil spirit chariot, and a pair of soul-burning fires stared at the evil spirit, driving Aureli of the chariot. Eye of Judgment, start. Zatannos used Ghost Rider's exclusive skills. This skill allows the watched person to recall all the crimes he has committed at the same time, so that his soul feels all the pain he has done to the innocent, so as to achieve the effect of trial and punishment. At the same time, Ghost Rider as the initiator can also simultaneously see these crimes that bring guilt to the target, and determine the power and effect of the Eye of Judgment according to the will of the spirit of revenge in the body. So even if Aureli did a little mistake, Zatannos could choose to inflict serious damage on her. But our Aureli is a wonderful child, she never does bad things. At least Aureli himself thinks so. So Zatannos tried loneliness, and Eye of Judgment didn't give him anything back. Ouch. Aureli didn't know why the burning skeleton in front of him kept staring at her, but politely, she still smiled and called the owner of the car. Roar. How are you? Zatannos. Although Eye of Judgment did not find out the crime of the little girl in front of him, Zatannos is not Johnny Blazer. As an ancient demon, even though he has lost his memory, his nature is still tyrannical and evil, in order to restore the freedom of the soul. He doesn't care whether Aureli is guilty or not. So Zatannos turned the chain in his hand into a sickle and slammed it at Aureli's neck. Hey! The sharp blade of the sickle slashed across Aureli's neck easily, and her head, grumbling, rolled down and fell into Aureli's own arms. Ha 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 ha. My head has been chopped off. Aureli hugged her head and smiled even more happily. Zatannos was stunned looking at the mechanical parts exposed from Aureli's neck. After doing it for a long time, am I actually fighting a robot? No wonder Eye of Judgment has no effect. After spending so many years on Earth, even if Zatannos has been in a state of mania most of the time, he still has some knowledge of human beings. He naturally recognizes robots as a technological product. After a daze for a while, Zatannos came back to his senses. No matter whether Aureli was a robot or something else, he only needed to kill her according to the requirements of the contract, and he would be free. So Zatannos changed the sickle in his hand into a long sword, pointed it at the mechanical original inside Aureli's neck, and pierced it. Drink. Aureli raised his head to block upwards, and Tian Ling Gai just collided with the tip of the sword. Then, without any suspense, Ghost Rider's long sword shattered into a pile of scum. How are you? Aureli pointed his head at the Ghost Rider in the front of the car and called Roar again, but this time Roar was a little heavier, which directly turned Ghost Rider into a meteor for the third time, dragging a long tail. Flame disappeared into the sky. After blasting the Ghost Rider with the Hello Cannon, Aureli suddenly thought of a good idea. He grabbed his head and snapped a buckle above the front of the evil spirit chariot, and forced his head into the evil, in the spirit motorcycle. Among the many unscientific concepts in Alalay, there is one that is not very eye-catching, that is, any mechanical thing, as long as it is fitted with Alalay's head, it will become her body. Indeed, the evil spirit chariot is similar to Ghost Rider duplication, but it is a pity that Aureli's rule is even more unreasonable. So he was forcibly inserted into the evil spirit chariot of Aureli's head, and without the slightest resistance, he was controlled by Aureli. Ah ha 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 ha. Aureli, who successfully took control of the evil spirit tank, was very happy, carrying his original body, and using the hellfire attached to the evil spirit tank, drew a huge amount of cartoon poop on the ground. Although the habit of playing poo was forcibly corrected by his brother and sister, Aureli still has a soft spot for this stuff. Ghost Rider, who has the regenerative healing factor, once again passed through the flame portal to Aureli's side, but Aureli had already planned to play another game with him at this time. Ha 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 ha. You come after me. Controlling the evil spirit chariot also opened a flame-shaped portal. Aureli drove a motorcycle into it. Zatannos was stunned again. What happened during the time he was beaten into the air? Why did the evil spirit chariot suddenly refuse to obey? In the end, it was more important to restore freedom. Zatannos gritted his teeth, repositioned himself to the position of Aureli through the connection between himself and the evil spirit chariot, and then decisively opened the portal to catch up. Then many hell creatures looked at the recently famous Aureli, and the Ghost Rider, who has always been famous, scurrying around in various places in the hell. It seems like Aureli took away Ghost Rider's motorcycle. Just as Aureli was sneaking around Ghost Rider and running around the hell, Mephisto, the initiator, controlled his duplication and quietly left the hell. Mephisto, who had been punched by Alalay in the front, definitely knew that Ghost Rider could not beat Alal's super-standard existence. Even Ghost Rider's unique Eye of Judgment, Mephisto did not report much hope. At this time, Mephisto had long given up on the unnecessary research of artificial intelligence souls, and only hoped that Aureli's horrible things could leave his hell dimension as soon as possible. So the scheming Mephisto has to look for more helpers, or lead Aureli to other places to harm others. So the object Mephisto chose was Dormammu, who was also the Lord of Dimensions. Mephisto? Interesting, you will come to my dimension. Dormammu's big face, which is comparable to Mosaic's, appeared in the sky of the dark dimension, and his larger body was looming in the darkness. The huge amounts of head dropped. Dormammu looked down at the duplication of Mephisto that suddenly appeared in his dimension, with a trace of greed in his eyes. Although it is just Mephisto's duplication, it still contains good power. For Dormammu, who is also the dimensional lord, Mephisto's duplication is a great nourishment. Dormammu, I'm here to negotiate terms with you. Mephisto said a line that made Dormammu not so happy. Dormammu, who was in a bad mood, pressed his big face down and approached Mephisto's duplication sarcastically. Condition: I don't think there is any reason to let me let go of your duplication. Unexpectedly, Mephisto smiled slightly, pointed to himself and said, this is also one of the conditions. If our cooperation is negotiated, what will this duplication give you? Dormammu stared at Mephisto, and after a long silence, he said, well, I'm interested in hearing your terms now. Although he can forcibly swallow Mephisto's duplication, if Mephisto resists, the power he can gain is actually not much. It is different when Mephisto actively cooperates. This is probably the difference between a chilled chicken butt and a whole hot roast chicken. So even if he knows that the old silver coin, Mephisto, has always been upset or kind, Dormammu still intends to hear his intentions. I have deceived a Ghost Rider before, and Mephisto did not change his statement. On the condition of his duplication and the magician who helped Dormammu drag Kamar Taj, he asked Dormammu to help solve the Hell invaders. Are you trying to trick me into the Hell dimension and then devour my power? Do I look so stupid? Mephisto. Obviously, Dormammu would not easily believe in Mephisto. Under his control, the surrounding dark power began to churn, as if they would swarm in the next second, tearing Mephisto's duplication to pieces. But Mephisto was very calm, because if Dormammu was really not interested, he would not pretend to be like this at all, but would directly attack himself. Therefore, Mephisto now only needs to make Dormammu feel free to trouble Alaray, then he has achieved his goal. So Mephisto constantly uses words to dispel Dormammu's scruples, and Dormammu also knows that Mephisto, the King of Hell, is very good at conspiracy and tricks, and naturally he won't be easily persuaded by him. Had it not been for Mephisto's tempting conditions, Dormammu would have eaten his duplication by force. After some intrigue, the two-dimensional lords finally perfected a contract that can be recognized by both parties. Then, I am waiting for you in Hell. Mephisto bowed at Dormammu, then let him swallow his duplication without any resistance. And when Dormammu swallowed Mephisto duplication and placed that deposit, the contract between the two-dimensional lords had come into effect. I always feel that I was cheated by Mephisto. Thinking back to the meaningful smile before Mephisto duplication was swallowed, Dormammu faintly regretted it. But the at the moment contract has been established. If he doesn't want his power to be taken away by Mephisto, he must enter the Hell dimension according to the contract and drive away the so-called intruder. Alalay doesn't plan to come back yet? Kraft ate the food prepared by Alice and asked Angela curiously. After Aureli snatched Ghost Rider's motorcycle and ran around with the portal open, Alice and Angela first returned to the Hell base temporarily established by Kraft. Anyway, Angela can contact Aureli at any time, and with Aureli's strength, they don't need to worry about anything at all. On the contrary, Ancient One, after listening to Angela's description, roughly explained the existence of Ghost Rider to Kraft, so they now also know that the guy was mostly a helper that Mephisto found. That Ghost Rider is very persistent. He has been chasing Aureli. Aureli has broken him several times, and he can still recover. Angela tilted her head and replied after checking the situation on Aureli's side. Hey, things like regenerative healing factor are really troublesome. Just when Kraft was considering whether to take a trip in person and use Soul Gem to imprison the spirit of vengeance in Ghost Rider, the gloomy sky in the Hell dimension was suddenly quickly infested by darkness. In the blink of an eye, the sky of Hell was completely obscured by darkness, and even the nearby light source seemed to be suppressed by something. It became dim, and the visibility plummeted. This is the Dark Dimension Invasion. As Dormammu's old opponent, Ancient One was so familiar with this situation, she stood up in surprise and looked at the sudden darkness above her head. After a brief surprise, Ancient One, who calmed down, immediately noticed the strangeness. Dormammu's invasion was too rapid. It looked like Mephisto had not resisted at all. This is obviously impossible. Even if Mephisto was caught in the energy of Kraft's bare children, it would not be so easy. The home was stolen by Dormammu. So, Dormammu was invited by Mephisto to deal with Aureli? Ancient One thought of the little robot girl who was helpless, and suddenly understood Mephisto's choice. In order to allow Dormammu to do his best, Mephisto even took the initiative to open up the authority of the Hell Dimension, allowing Dormammu to enter the Hell with the Dark Dimension. By the way, it can also allow Aurelie to transfer her interest to the Dark Dimension. At this time, Ancient One almost understood Mephisto's plan. It can only be said that the King of Hell is really pressed, because doing so will pit Dormammu not lightly. After that, Dormammu will remember and will definitely live with Mephisto. And Ancient One also knew that Kraft and the others would voluntarily leave after they had played enough. It can be said that Mephisto offended Dormammu for this, and it was completely out of value. Since Ancient One doesn't know the replacement rule of the King of Hell, she wonders why Mephisto, a scheming guy, can't wait to get rid of Aurelie. Obviously this old demon is very tolerant. When Ancient One was full of doubts, Angela's shocked roar sounded in his ears. "Brother, there are new changes in Aurelie." As Angela shouted, she projected a picture with Aurelie as the main point of view. Judging from the screen, Aurelie's head has been set back to his body, and the current situation of the Ghost Rider who has been pestering her is not too good. Whether it was the Ghost Rider originally or the Ghost Chariot that had been retaken, the flames on it were not as vigorous as it was at the beginning. Obviously, it has been crushed so many times in a row by Aurelie, and Ghost Rider is not without consumption at all. However, the protagonist in the at the moment picture is not the Ghost Rider, but the black mist that keeps rolling in the sky. The black mist in the sky constantly rolled and gathered, eventually forming a huge amounts of black vortex, which completely attracted Aurelie's gaze. She tilted her head back, looking at the black whirlpool in the sky with a look of expectation. What will come out? So excited, so excited. The black mist followed the vortex eyes of the vortex, forming a black line and falling to the ground, turning into a black skeleton wearing black ancient armor and burning flames. From the outside, it is somewhat similar to Ghost Rider.
"Oh are you brothers? Ha 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 ha." Aurelie's gaze swept back and forth between the two flame skulls, one black and one white. He didn't know what he thought of, and suddenly he burst into laughter.
Dormammu was stunned when he saw Aurelie's appearance, but he did not underestimate Aurelie, because Mephisto paid such a high price to invite him. It could not be just a boring prank. "Although I don't know what's going on with you, but go to hell." Dormammu didn't talk too much nonsense, driving his own power to hit Aurelie with a black shockwave. But he didn't see it, Ghost Rider's sympathetic gaze. "Ho. How are you? Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing?" Dormammu lay in the ruins, staring blankly at the hell sky that had been infested by his dark dimension, and fell into doubt about the world. The clear memory in his mind told Dormammu that he had just been shot flying by a beam spit out from the mouth of a little human girl. But whether it is emotionally or intellectually, Dormammu cannot accept it. The opponent is the opponent that Mephisto is afraid of. Dormammu has expected that Aurelie can block his attack, and may even have room to fight back. But he never thought that not only did the opponent have room to fight back, but he could also make it impossible for him to fight back. After carefully inspecting his Dormammu, he did not find any traces of hands and feet on his body, so no matter how unbelievable he was, he had to accept the fact that he was easily defeated by the little girl named Aurelie. No wonder Mephisto asked me for help. Dormammu hated the old silver coin Mephisto. But the current situation is that if Dormammu doesn't want to help Mephisto solve Aurelie, then he will not only return the power of the duplication before, but also double it. Not only that, his dark dimension also has to open some permissions to Mephisto. Damn Mephisto. Although Dormammu was very reluctant to bear those powers, he would admit it after gritting his teeth, but he couldn't give anything to the authority of the dimension. Although it is only the most elementary level of authority, for old silver coins like Mephisto, as long as a little bit of authority is opened, it may be slowly and completely infiltrated by him. Dormammu now speculates that Mephisto's real purpose is probably to want this permission, and then to further seize his own dark dimension. In fact, he was half right. Mephisto's real purpose was indeed this permission, but he did not intend to grab Dormammu's dark dimension, because it was too uneconomical. Mephisto's plan is that if Dormammu can't deal with Aurelie, then after obtaining this permission, as long as Aurelie appears in hell, he can directly exile her to the dark dimension and throw the trouble to Dormammu. At this time, Dormammu definitely didn't know Mephisto's sinister intentions, and felt that he was fooled by drawing more power directly from the dark dimension, and turned into a giant that shades the sky. Although it is slightly inferior in size to the dark dimension, Dormammu's huge amounts of body are enough for most hell creatures to see and feel the oppression from the life level brought by the dimensional lord. Feel. That's Dormammu. As an ordinary human, Kraft was naturally an oppressed member. He looked at the dark giant in the distance with huge amounts of greater amounts of Serta than the original Serta, with a slightly stiff expression on his face. The reason that makes Kraft's expression unnatural, in addition to the coercion on the life level, is the slightly exaggerated energy readings on the smart glasses. When the Spear of Shadow was fully fired regardless of the consequences, it was probably at this level, and after that, the Spear of Shadow would basically be scrapped. According to Ancient One, this is not yet the complete body of Dormammu. How did you Kamar Taj keep such a monster out of the earth for so many years? When Dormammu invaded the earth, there was no Mephisto to help bring in the dark dimension. Ancient One is very calm. Anyway, this is hell. She doesn't need her headaches. Dormammu invades and invades. And, in the end, this hapless guy will probably be beaten by Aurelie. Mephisto is really sinful. Pulling Ghost Rider into the water doesn't count, but I'm flicking Dormammu. I see how you will end up. Ancient One thought gloatingly in his heart. Unlucky to be able to see two old opponents, Ancient One is so happy that he even wants to give himself a vacation. What? I have retired. That's all right. In addition to Kraft and the others, many demons and hell creatures have also seen Dormammu's existence, and only then did they understand what was going on in the darkness before. Dormammu, the Dark Lord, is still very famous in all dimensions, so when he appeared, and combined with recent events, many devils with a full brain have guessed the general situation. The hell creatures who hadn't guessed didn't have any special thoughts. This was not a category where they could intervene, so everyone just silently stayed away from the place where Dormammu was, so as not to be affected by themselves. Wow, it's huge. As one of the principals, Alalay put his palm on his forehead and looked at the dark giant who was running towards him. He took out from his pocket a magic wand given to her by Brother Kraft. Transformation Body. Alalay held up the divine light rod, and a dazzling golden light lit up at the top of the rod, piercing the darkness. Then, nothing happened. Oh, Aurelie knocked his little head. Then she took out a salted egg Superman leather case from her pocket and exchanged it on her body. He. This wonderful development even made Zatanos forgot to continue attacking Aurelie, and watched her wearing a bright silver strange costume with a dazed expression on her face. And Dormammu, who came back in 3 steps and 2 steps, was also confused by Aurelie's magical operation. What are you doing? Wait a minute, I'll change it soon. Aurelie continued to compete with the Ultraman leather case without looking back, and Dormammu didn't know which of the tendons was wrong, and he actually waited for Aurelie to change his clothes. Success. More than 10 minutes later, Aurelie, who passed the holster, placed his hands in a cross shape and pointed it at Dormammu's big face in the sky. Only then did Dormammu find out what stupid things he did just now. I was so stupidly waiting for the enemy to change into a meaningless costume. Go to death for me. An angry Dormammu gathered the dark magic power on his fist and smashed it at Aurelie. Zatanos, who was also included in the attack range, was shocked and wanted to open the flame portal and leave. But Dormammu's punch seemed simple, but it had already blocked the surrounding space. Even Zatanos couldn't break through his blockade. Using the portal to escape failed, Zatanos stepped onto the evil spirit chariot without saying a word, and fled to the distance at the fastest speed. Although Ghost Rider has a very powerful regenerative healing factor, it will also damage its own strength if you die too much, and it will take a long time to recover. Zatanos had been smashed by Aurelie several times before, and the speed of resurrection had begun to slow down. If it were not for the contract, he would have already run away. Now that even Dormammu is here, he can wait and see for a while and take the opportunity to regain his strength. Aurelie looked at the huge fist falling from the sky without a trace of fear. She squatted down with a smile on her face, then jumped up suddenly, and slammed her head against Dormammu's fist. Hey! The small body collided with the big fist. Then there is no suspense. Dormammu's huge amounts of arm was smashed into a cloud of black mist, while Aurelie's body slammed into Dormammu's chin, knocking his huge body high and flying, and then hit it hard. Fell to the ground. The huge vibration produced when it fell can be felt by almost the entire hell. Damn Aurelie. I must kill you. Dormammu's incompetent and furious roar resounded through hell, and Mephisto, who was secretly observing the battle, was suddenly startled. Oops. Only then did Mephisto realize that he had missed the huge movement caused by the battle between Aurelie and Dormammu. And this, it is very likely that the remaining hell creatures will recognize the power of Aurelie. This is not Mephisto's unreasonable worries, because he has already felt that the power belonging to the hell dimension is leaving him. Do not panic. Mephisto could not think of a remedy at all, he could only let out a meaningless wailing. On the other side, after knocking Dormammu into the air, Aurelie suddenly froze, feeling that there was something in her little head. Ouch. King of Hell. What is this? Mephisto has always been able to pit people with contracts. In addition to his originally good at drilling various loopholes, there is also a part of the reason, because the power of the King of Hell can give him the bottom line. In addition to the execution of the contract, Killing the contractor is also a way to terminate the contract. However, as the king of hell, Mephisto's own power determines that most people cannot use this method. And with Mephisto's slippery level, it is not easy to catch him, not to mention that as long as the hell dimension is immortal, he can be resurrected again and again as the king of hell. Therefore, it is basically impossible to terminate the contract by killing Mephisto himself. However, now that the position of king of hell has been taken away by Aureli, the situation is different. Although Mephisto is a very powerful demon even without the blessing of the hell dimension, it is only a demon, far from his identity as the dimensional lord. Not to mention Dormammu, who is also the lord of dimension, even the Ghost Rider in the state of Zatanos, has the ability to kill Mephisto. What makes Mephisto helpless is that, just like he can contact Ghost Rider through a contract, after the ability reaches a certain level, the other party can also find Mephisto through the contract. So when Mephisto calmed down, he quickly returned to his lair, swept away the treasures he had collected for many years, and then decisively left Hell while actively canceling all the contracts that could find him. Although doing so will allow those who haven't reacted to find out that the King of Hell has been replaced, it also prevents them from secretly locking their position after detecting something wrong. What's more, Zatanos and Dormammu are not far from the new King of Hell. Mephisto can't hide it for much time even if it wants to hide it. It shouldn't be interrupted, and hide before everyone can react. Peekaboo. Mephisto is professional. The moment Mephisto broke the contract, Dormammu, who was planning to continue to fight with Aureli, felt it. He was sluggish for a moment and didn't understand which Mephisto was acting. Seeing that I couldn't beat Aureli, so I just broke the contract? Stop teasing. Mephisto is not such a kind fellow. But no matter what, Dormammu doesn't need to continue fighting with Aureli now, it's just that his face as the Lord of Darkness is a little bit difficult. Dormammu started a little hesitation, wondering if he should continue to smash with Aureli. But Zatanos didn't have so much scruples, he strayed without looking back the first time he discovered that the contract was cancelled. Face? What's that thing? Does it have anything to do with me? At the moment, Aureli floating in the sky didn't even care about Ghost Rider who was escaping, and Dormammu who was still hesitating not far away. Because with the name of the King of Hell, a lot of knowledge and authority about the dimensions of hell have also been forcibly stuffed into Aureli's little head. Ouch. With Aureli's confused little head, she couldn't understand what these messy things were, she just felt that she seemed to be able to feel some strange things. One of the things that gave Aureli was dirty, so she subconsciously wanted to wipe it clean. Then Dormammu, who was still in hesitation, felt a power belonging to the hell dimension burst out of Aureli's body, and began to drive him to invade the dark dimension here. Until this time, Dormammu really wanted to understand the cause and effect of the matter. Ha 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 ha. Dormammu laughed up to the sky. He suddenly stopped thinking about the issue of competing with Aureli, and decisively withdrew his own strength. Losing to a little human girl and losing to a dimensional lord are two concepts, and Dormammu really doesn't want to fight with a freak like Aureli. In contrast, Dormammu wanted to find Mephisto and concoct it fiercely. Let you cheat me. So, what happened just now? Watching the darkness quickly recede in the sky, Kraft was confused. They have been watching the development from the first point of view of Aureli, but when Dormammu was overthrown by Aureli, Kraft couldn't understand the next development at all. The Ghost Rider and Dormammu hadn't given up before, so why did they take the initiative to run away suddenly? Only the corners of Ancient One's mouth twitched when she saw everything. She covered her forehead and weakly explained to Kraft. Alale is now the master of this hell dimension. What do you mean? Kraft drew his ears, suspecting that he might have heard something wrong. Ancient One sighed and continued to reply with that weak voice. Don't doubt, you heard it right. The current King of Hell is no longer Mephisto, but Aureli. After silently digesting the shocking news, Kraft suddenly slapped his thigh. The King of Hell is good. After a series of experiments, Kraft still failed to find a way to directly practice magic, but as with force magic, he could use another method to achieve a similar effect. That is the contract demon. After signing a contract with the demon, Kraft was able to use the power of the demon to cast some spells, but the spells he casts must be the devil originally capable. Once Kraft learns from other demon warlocks and mobilizes the power of the demon to construct spells, Kraft will still spew out old blood. When things reached this point, Kraft basically gave up his mind. He guessed that the damned super ability development had a conceptual setting of not being able to learn spells. Therefore, even if Kraft contracts with more demons, the upper limit of the spells used is the original power of the demons. It's not as good as using infinite gems. At most, it can be blessed by the power of multiple demons, strengthening itself, and it feels similar to the power of Kunlun's Iron Fist. Now that Aureli has become the King of Hell, Kraft can choose to sign a contract with her. If you can still borrow Aureli's unscientific and magical power, that is really a big profit. So Kraft quickly contacted Aureli and called her back. There is no need to use the teleportation device in the body. Aureli can move freely in any corner of the hell dimension by relying on the power of hell. After receiving Kraft's call, she directly turns into a plume of smoke and disappears in place, and then appeared in front of Kraft. Brother, you think I'm so good? Aureli was already lying on Kraft's back as soon as she appeared. She flaunted happily while tugging at Kraft's cheek. Yes, Aureli is the best. Kraft, who was ripped at his face, echoed with a strange voice, making Aureli amused and laughed. Although he wanted to sign a contract with Aureli, Kraft still planned to observe whether he would have any bad influence on Aureli after he mastered the dimension of hell. So after complimenting Aureli, Kraft took her off his back, and while scanning Aureli with the instrument, he asked her various questions. After checking, there was no special change except for a special energy in Aureli's body. But Aureli mentioned one thing in particular. She could hear some messy sounds from time to time, and as she became more familiar with the power of hell, these sounds were gradually becoming clearer. That's the voice of some people who want to trade with the devil. Ancient One explained to Kraft. In the sacrificial spell system, some prayers are not specifically directed to a certain demon, so they may be received by all demons. Aureli has become the king of hell. In this sense, it also belongs to the devil. In addition, there are cases of praying directly to the king of hell. All these will be heard by Aureli. Brother, it's a bit noisy. Aureli covered her ears with her hands and said with a frown. Can this thing be blocked? Kraft looked at Ancient One. But Ancient One shrugged. How do I know? I have never been the king of hell. Then Aureli, you can try to see if you can actively block these sounds. Well, Aureli continued to cover her ears and closed her eyes. After a lot of blindness, she opened her eyes. Can't turn it off. I don't want to be the king of hell anymore. Aureli bulged her little cheek and groaned in disgust. Can the title of the king of hell be given to others? Compared to signing a contract with the king of hell, Aureli's feelings are more important, and Kraft once again looks at the omnipotent Ancient One. Ancient One magician's face blackened. What are you thinking about? Is it possible for things like Dimension Master to come and go casually? I don't care. I just don't want it. Aureli stomped her arms and started a small temper. So the whole hell began to shake with Aureli's stomping. I don't know if it is the hell dimension that is aware of its own crisis, or Aureli's original setting. Without waiting for Kraft's words to appease Aureli, the power of hell in her body turns into a ball of red and black light. He took the initiative to bounce out and flew to Ancient One, who was aside. Ouch. The voice disappeared. After the power of hell left, Aureli stopped by herself. Didn't you say that you can't give this thing casually? Kraft cast his questioning eyes on the new king of hell. Ancient One. I can't answer this. Although inexplicably won the title of king of hell, Ancient One magician was not happy at all. Not only because of doubts about his professionalism, but also because this king of hell is a castrated version. To be precise, it is not called the castrated version, but Ancient One and Aureli both have control over the dimension of hell, but the miscellaneous work related to receiving prayers has all fallen to Ancient One. For a better understood example, the hell dimension is a company, and Aureli is the largest shareholder. Basically, as long as you lie down and pay dividends, you don't need to be in charge, while Ancient One is a shareholder and CEO, although it is similar in status to Aureli. Yes, but also have to bear the responsibility of the title, King of Hell. Hateful. I obviously plan to retire. Why does the power of hell that Aureli doesn't want to stare at me? Kraft, who is obviously closer to Aureli, is also nearby, isn't it? That uncomfortable in Ancient One's heart. I have known for a long time that Kraft's things made by this kid are not normal, but this is also too abnormal. Even Ancient One has lost the calmness of the past under this circumstance. She maintained her calmness on the surface. What's the situation with your own sister, don't you know? For some well-known reasons, Ancient One did not say it explicitly, but threw the sentence to Kraft with his eyes. And Kraft also magically understood the meaning in Ancient One's eyes. He was silent for a moment and had to admit that Ancient One's saying made sense. Sure enough, Aureli, you are super amazing. With infinite emotion, Kraft rubbed Alayle's little head. Although I don't know what's going on, I'm very happy to be praised by my brother. Alale smiled and laughed. Aside from this somewhat weird way of obtaining it, Ancient One feels that being able to become the king of hell is actually a good thing. At least under her constraints, it is not so easy for demons in this dimension to seduce humans. As for the complicated sounds mentioned by Aureli, they are nothing to Ancient One. For Kraft, the addition of Ancient One to the contract is naturally a more popular thing. After signing the contract with Erle, it is a bit regretful that she definitely failed to obtain her strange power, but getting the blessing of Ancient One, the former supreme magician, is a comprehensive compensation. I just don't know if this contract will take effect in other parallel worlds. After signing the contract with Ancient One, Kraft plans to leave Hell and take Erle and the others to the parallel world to play. Probably not. Ancient One smiled and replied that being able to transmit power across dimensions through the contract is already very remarkable. It is really too much to think about cross worlds. You can try it when you take Erle to parallel world, but I don't think there is much hope. No surprise, Kraft sighed, so he still had to think about cultivating immortals or trying to develop the power of infinite gems. When Kraft took out his portal gun and planned to go back to rest and head to the parallel world, a complicated magic circle suddenly appeared in front of Ancient One, and then an iron-faced man in a green robe walked from it, came out. Mephisto. I'm here to retrieve my mother. Who are you? After Victor Von Doom came to Hell through magic, he saw a woman with short hair and 4 young children in front of him. But he quickly recognized 2 of them, Kraft and Erle. Although Dr. Doom did not personally go out in the fight against Thanos, Laudavilla he ruled still sent troops to participate in the Battle of Saturn. And as the secret leader of Laudavilla, Doomu naturally has a way to know Erle, a robot that is wary of all countries but has no way of doing it, and her producer Kraft. And based on these 2 people, Dr. Dom also recognized Alice, who is relatively less famous, and Angela, who rarely shows up. The only one who has no clue is the adult woman, but according to her own magic, this unknown woman is the master. But it's Mephisto that I am clearly locked. The spells that Doomu casts were created based on the spells left by his mother. The target is not the exact Mephisto, but the most powerful demon in the Hell dimension, that is, the King of Hell. Because according to the habits of demons, they generally do not leave communication spells that directly point to them in the world, but use pseudonyms or other forms of appellation. Although Dr. Doom relied on his own wisdom and learned advanced magic according to the spell notes left by his mother, because there was no one to guide him, some knowledge was not so clear. On the other side, Kraft also learned of Dr. Doom's identity under Angela's notification. Definitely because of Laudavilla's backwardness and closure, Angela actually got very little information, but she knew that this person in front of her was the actual controller of Laudavilla, who was also the former Mr. Fantastic Reed Richards' university classmates. But seeing that he can actually use magic to come to the Hell dimension, obviously this guy is not as simple as the information collected by Angela. Where is Mephisto? Although I am also curious about why Kraft and the others appeared in Hell, for Dr. Doom, saving his mother's soul is the most important thing. As the former supreme magician and the current king of Hell, Ancient One definitely can realize that Dr. Doom's spells are actually based on the king of Hell, so she naturally wants to understand everything. Mephisto has left this Hell dimension. Your spells are directed at individuals with the title of Hell King, and unfortunately, just now, this title fell to me. Regarding Victor Von Doom, Ancient One has seen it several times when observing the timeline, but in the timeline he observed, he has been honestly in front of the king behind his small country, so she didn't pay any attention to it. However, looking at Doom's current state, it is estimated that he used a certain spell to block other people's prying eyes in the future. There is another point that makes Ancient One a little puzzled. With Doom's level of spells, why he doesn't know much about some common sense of spells. If he really had become a monk and practiced magic to this point, then Doomu's ability was definitely not inferior to Strange. Doomu, who had heard that Mephisto had run away, was a little desperate, but when he heard that this woman claimed to be the Queen of Hell, he rekindled hope. I am here to find my mother's soul. If you can find her for me, I am willing to make any deal with you. When dealing with the devil, it is not a good choice to tell your bottom line as soon as you come up. Ancient One once again confirmed that Doom was a wild magician. She sighed. Fortunately, now Hell kneels and she is in charge. Otherwise, if such a magical genius is controlled by Mephisto with a contract, she will definitely make a fuss again in the future. A mess. Wait. Am I retired? Why deal with these troublesome things? Forced to work, Ancient One sighed again. It is really difficult to enjoy a retirement life these years. It's all because of Kraft, the bear boy, who makes messy things all day long. Sure enough. Let Kraft find a relatively stable parallel world and send me a vacation for the past 180 years. Ancient One glanced at Kraft, his complicated eyes confused. But before going on vacation, she had to arrange the magic genius before her. Yes. This guy in front of him is also a magic genius who doesn't lose to Strange. Pulling a Doctor Strange to be a strong man is pulling, and pulling a Doctor Strange to be a strong man is also pulling. Ancient One immediately made a small calculation in his heart. Now that Mephisto has lost control of the Hell dimension, and he escaped in such a hurry, Most of his soul must have remained in hell without taking it away, so it's nothing for Ancient One to snatch an ordinary human soul from him. Difficult. And Ancient One can take this opportunity to pull Victor Von Doom into the Kamar Taj camp. In this way, with two magic geniuses, Strange and Dumb guarding the mysterious side, she can go to the parallel world with more peace of mind. So with the enthusiastic help of Ancient One, Dr. Doom successfully retrieved his mother's soul and set her free, and at the same time promised that Ancient One would help Kamar Taj fight against the invasion of other dimensions. Although your level of magic is very high, some common sense needs more learning. After solving everything, Ancient One said to Dr. Doom, although Dumb's magic system is not the Vashandi system that Kamar Taj majored in, Kamar Taj's library also has corresponding books, so Ancient One intends to take him to Kamar Taj to further study. As for Kraft's crumbling magician complaints, she didn't care. And, if it weren't for you and the robot sister you built to do a good job, would I need such hard work? Huh. After giving Kraft a vicious look, Ancient One opened the portal to the holy place in New York. Devil. This is not where you should be. When Ancient One took Dumb into the holy place in New York, Strange noticed the breath from hell, and he quickly appeared in front of the two through teleportation magic. Then I was shocked by the resurrected Ancient One. Ancient One magician? Why are you? Strange first showed a surprised expression, then his face was on guard again. What a powerful illusion. I can't see the flaw. Ancient One. After showing some of Kamar Taj's spells and talking about some of Strange's embarrassment, Strange barely believed in the identity of Ancient One. As for the hell aura on Ancient One, Dr. Strange didn't care much. This was not the first time Ancient One had done it. Because Ancient One previously used the dark power to perform the show, but Kamar Taj's magician rebelled, and Modu magician's departure, which has something to do with her original practice. What Dr. Strange didn't know was that Ancient One was not as simple as borrowing the power of hell. However, Ancient One didn't explain much, and smiled and introduced her newly recruited young man to Dr. Strange. Stephen, let me introduce you a new friend. In an unmanned alley in Hell's Kitchen in New York, a light green door opened, and Kraft, dressed in casual clothes, walked out of it. After the light gate closed, Kraft first tried to mobilize the hell power from the contract, but there was no response. Then he opened the portal again and took Aurelie over. Since Ancient One's crumb magician is now busy rectifying the hell and adding a burden to the two students, he didn't follow Kraft this time. Alice didn't like to run around and stayed in the original world, so Angie was the only one who followed. Pull and Aurelie. Ouch, is this another world? It seems there is no difference. After Aurelie stepped out of the portal, he raised his head and looked around. Under normal circumstances, there would not have been much changes. Kraft smiled and rubbed Aurelie's hair, and then tried to use the power of hell again. It was a success. It's just that compared with the original world, it is more difficult to mobilize the power of hell in the new world. If you use the network analogy, it is probably the difference between a 10 meters TV network and a 100 meters internal optical fiber. I don't know if the signal is bad due to the crossworld, or this world also has the king of hell and hell, which squeezes the authority of Aurelie. So, should I do this without alarming Mephisto in this world? Tisk. Angela, first check to see if there are anyone we are familiar with in this world. Kraft, who shook his hand and dissipated the power of hell, slapped his lips, but was not afraid of Mephisto or other demons. The main reason was that he had already been to hell once, and there was nothing new to go there again. Okay. Angela's cheerful voice sounded in the headset. You must know that her initial hobby was to invade other people's computers, fighting against those firewalls, network security experts, and even artificial intelligence. While Angela was sliding around in the online world to pick the lock, Kraft had already led Aurelie out, and only glanced at the surrounding buildings. Kraft already knew his location. Although the appearance and signs of most buildings are different from what Kraft remembered, the overall layout of the Hell's Kitchen in the two worlds has not changed much. This is the place where Kraft stayed for several years when he was a child. Naturally, it is impossible to admit his mistake. Is this Hell's Kitchen too deserted? The Hell's Kitchen in my impression is crimes almost all the time, and the streets are full of punks with tattoos all over their bodies. But now, Kraft hasn't seen too many pedestrians. Although there are punks who make themselves bells and whistles, there are also not many. Is it the difference between parallel worlds? And why do these people look so strange in my eyes? In addition to being more deserted, Kraft also found that many people were pointing to themselves, with greed and fear in their eyes, but most of them were hatred. Angela, first look up what's wrong with me in this world. This situation is obviously not difficult to guess. Kraft twitched his mouth and asked Angela to figure it out first. Although it's good to encounter one's own peers in the first world that I crossed this time, It seems that the situation of this world's self seems a bit wrong. However, before Angela finished checking the information and giving it back to Kraft, several police cars sounded their sirens and stopped in front of him in a rampaging manner. Reaching out to hold the eager O'Reilly next to him, Kraft was even more puzzled. Is the police in this Hell's Kitchen so arrogant? In our rush, the policeman in Hell's Kitchen went out cautiously. In Kraft's bewildered look, a large number of police officers got out of the car, drew pistols from their waists, and aimed at him using the police car as a cover. Kraft. You have been surrounded by us. Quickly let go of your hostages. Quickly surrender. A fat white policeman, probably the leader, with a loudspeaker in his hand, hid behind a group of men and shouted at Kraft. Me in this world, the problem is really serious. Kraft stroked his chin speechlessly, but this simple action made the police officers feel as if they were frightened by something terrifying, becoming more tense, and even a little riot. Brother, do they mean me as the hostage? O'Reilly tugged at the corner of Kraft's clothes, pointed to her nose and asked. Yep. Kraft responded casually. Then O'Reilly yelled loudly, ha 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 ha. Come on and just me. I was kidnapped by my brother. Kraft. Policeman at the scene. Sir, was that little girl really kidnapped? A policeman leaned into the ear of the white police officer and whispered. Otherwise? Do you really think she is Kraft's sister? The white police officer glared at his small eyes that were almost invisible because of the fat, and yelled. Looking like this, I guess the hostage's intelligence might be a bit problematic. Damn Kraft. There is even a mentally handicapped person. Don't let the children go. Kraft. Hey. I heard. At this moment, Angela's intelligence was finally collected, and Kraft finally knew what was going on in this world. Although there are also Magian gangs in this world, they are just a very ordinary and common gang, so Kraft in this world has not experienced any human experiments. In the beginning, the Kraft of this world was just a stowaways who lived in America. Relying on some small crafts like wood carvings and bamboo weaving, he reluctantly mixed his food in Queens, New York. Since the language was not fluent at the beginning, everyone used the slightly professional word, Kraft, to call him Roar. Over time, this became his official name. Later, Kraft gradually learned English and established his own interpersonal relationship in Queens. Although he didn't know any great people, everyone was a supportive petty person, and the friendship was still very deep. However, there were unpredictable circumstances. Just when Kraft's life was gradually on the right track, he and some of his friends were suddenly involved in the struggle of the gang. In this unwarranted disaster, Kraft's friends died clean, but his luck was better, and he fell into the river next to him and disappeared. Not long after, the members of the two gangs were suddenly assassinated. At first, no one noticed. But as the death toll gradually increased, and there were casualties among the top gang members, the two gangs had to join forces to investigate. Murderer. In the end, naturally, the disappeared Kraft was turned over. It's just that Kraft didn't know where to learn his skills at this time. Faced with the siege of two gangs, instead of being caught, he went all the way to their base camp in Hell's Kitchen. This shocked the other gangs in Hell's Kitchen. For the sake of the gang's face and some interests, some of the gangs united and began to encircle Kraft. Naturally, it goes without saying that this group of gangs failed to succeed, but Kraft's subsequent revenge killed many people. And with Kraft's constant revenge, these gangs had to take the initiative to let the police intervene, and they also bought part of the New York media, describing Kraft as a perverted murderer who took pleasure in murder. With the intervention of the police and the guard of most unsuspecting masses, Kraft's frantic revenge had to stop, but he still lurked in the Hell's Kitchen, attacking those gang members who were alone from time to time. This is why the Hell's Kitchen is so deserted now, and the reason why the police can appear so arrogantly. But these are not the main points. The main point is the photos of Kraft collected by Angela about this world. Looking at the familiar white robe of Sao Bao in the photo, as well as the rough hidden blade made of scrap copper, wrought in iron and bamboo weaving. Kraft's psychology is out of balance. Obviously I have dreamed of this dream too. Why can't I learn the assassination technique inside? I warn you again. Hurry up and release the little girl in your hand. You will be caught with your hands. You have been surrounded by our police and there is no way to escape. The fat police officer's shouts awakened Kraft, who was irritating. He looked at the fat police officer who was shouting speechlessly. You mean to remind me to threaten you with hostages and let me go? Kraft's ridicule surprised the fat police officer. He hurriedly argued. What nonsense. How could I remind you of this vicious criminal? Wow. He is a dangerous man, and he did it right away. Get along with such a low-level response plan. This police officer should be a householder, right? Not to mention the Chief George Stacy. This fat guy is not even as good as the ordinary patrol officers who often cooperate with Peter Parker. He silently murmured at the fat police officer in front of him, and Kraft looked around with a headache. Even if it is a parallel world, Kraft has no plans to kill. If he acts too much, it is not a good thing for the peers in this world. Sure enough, it's better to open an invisible force field first. Just as Kraft was thinking this way, suddenly there was a sound of fighting from a distance, and he was still approaching here quickly. Kraft took the lead to cast his gaze in the direction of the sound, and saw two figures, one red and one white, fighting ping-pong as they approached the encircling circle. At this time, even if the policemen were pulling their hips, they could still spot the noise made by the two men. It's just that after seeing the incoming person, they fell into a state of bewilderment. The one in the white robe is not. Brother, there is another you. O'Reilly pointed at the white-robed man and shouted loudly. The Kraft in the white robe and the daredevil in the red uniform suddenly separated, and one of them turned over and landed on the roof of a building not far away, looking down at Kraft and O'Reilly. How are you? Another brother. Full of vitality, O'Reilly stretched his arms and greeted Roar loudly with the assassin Kraft. Sir, what should we do next? We seem to have surrounded the wrong people. The policeman leaned close to the fat police officer's ear again and whispered for instructions. Don't I know? Say it with you. The fat police officer, who became angry and furious, quickly gave orders. Aim at this real murderer. The other police hurriedly turned their guns and aimed them at the assassin Kraft on the roof. Sure enough, the New York police in this sector are far behind. But it can also be seen from this little detail that this world shouldn't be as disaster-stricken as Kraft's original world, or in other words, it hasn't had enough time for it. Kraft sighed. Regardless of whether the assassin Kraft deliberately exposed himself to avoid suspicion, he couldn't just watch his peers be captured by these trash policemen. And he also planned to ask this Kraft how he learned the skills of the assassin brotherhood. Kraft hooked his fingers habitually. Guidance magic, windflower, and disarm. A strange gust of wind suddenly appeared, blowing all the police officers around, and the most amazing thing was that they all released their weapons for various reasons. The crackling sound of the pistol falling to the ground for a while, there were occasionally one or two gunfires, and some unlucky screams. Seeing this situation, the assassin Kraft instantly seized the opportunity to fall backwards, fell from the top of the building, rolled twice after landing, and disappeared under everyone's eyelids so abruptly. The daredevil, who relied solely on hearing, didn't even notice the assassin Kraft's departure because of Roar's howling wind. Only Kraft easily followed him based on the heat detection of the smart glasses. Kraft, wearing a white robe, walked quickly through the streets of Hell's Kitchen. He seemed to inherit the obscure ability of those assassins in his dreams, and everyone around him completely ignored the conspicuously dressed wanted criminal. Even Kraft himself, as long as he is not paying attention, will lose his figure, and Angela has to remind him to relock the assassin Kraft. Obviously he is not invisible, he really learned the skills in the dream world. Kraft, who was driving the invisible force field, was envious and jealous. The only thing that makes Kraft a little curious is, why do you have to wear this white robe? After a long walk, the assassin Kraft finally walked into an unremarkable apartment. Kraft led O'Reilly to follow, and followed him all the way to a room with a very bad environment. Except for a simple workbench and a pile of rags that were probably a bed, the only piece of furniture inside was a desk lamp that was badly worn. Wow. Your situation is too miserable. Kraft lifted the invisible force field, pinching his nose and spitting out angrily. He had experienced this kind of situation, but it was all a long time ago. Now Kraft, who is comfortable now, is used to it for a while. Can't accept the weird smell in this room. As soon as he heard Kraft's voice, the assassin Kraft's hand popped the hidden blade, and quickly turned around to make a precautionary action. However, after seeing the appearance of Kraft and O'Reilly, although he still maintained a vigilant posture, his attitude became a little hesitant. You? How did you follow? And, who are you? Kraft didn't guess wrong. The assassin Kraft only rushed over there on purpose when he heard that he was rounded up by the police. He was worried that innocent people would be involved. He was only discovered by Daredevil on the way. Don't fight all the way to the past. In addition, he is also curious why some people are mistaken for himself. As a result, the moment he saw Kraft, he was really taken aback. There are people in this world who look so similar to me. Had he not known that he had no brothers, he would have thought Kraft was his long-lost twin brother. My name is Kraft Lee. You can also call me Lee Yi. This is my sister Alale Lee. Hearing Kraft's self-introduction, Kraft's pupils shrank suddenly, and suddenly he began to doubt whether he had a twin brother. Wrong. The name Kraft only came to America after he came to America, and he didn't have his surname Wong. This is probably just a coincidence. Although this is a bit coincidental. As for the name O'Reilly, he has no impression at all. My name is Wang Mian, you can also call me Craft King. Wang Mian paused. I know this may sound a little weird, but I am also called Craft. Oh, I knew this when I was surrounded by the police. Clough nodded, and then said, also, I used to have a name called Wang Mian, and an English name called Edward Wang. Are you kidding me? There are too many coincidences, it is not a coincidence. Wang Mian felt that someone in front of him was very likely to find someone to deal with him. It's just that Wang Mian can't figure out the meaning of doing this. However, what Wang Mian did not expect was that the guy he thought was a liar actually said something even more incredible. How should I put it specifically? I come from a parallel world, the other you. The sharp hidden blade cut through the air and stopped on Craft's neck. Don't think you look exactly like me, you can talk nonsense, believe it or not, I killed you. Wang Mian leaked a trace of murderous aura and warned Craft viciously. To put it bluntly, he still thought Craft was fooling himself. In desperation, Craft had to activate the Dreamland armor. The black armor instantly covered Craft's body. He easily squeezed Wang Mian's arm and forced it to sit down on the workbench. Can you calm down now? Craft patted the shocked Wang Mian on the shoulder, and then put away the armor. If you still don't believe me, I can take you to my world to take a look. I'm still a bit famous over there, and I can find it by checking it online. No. No need. The blade of the hidden blade retracted into Wang Mian's sleeve, and his body relaxed. It's not that he really believed Craft's words like that, but after seeing that magical suit, Wang Mian knew that he could not beat the opponent. Naturally Craft said what he said. Moreover, in order to deal with the displayed technological abilities and financial resources, it is not too difficult to make a fake situation to fool yourself. However, Craft's next sentence made Wang Mian nervous again. So, how did you learn the abilities of those assassins in your dreams? What dream? I don't understand what you were talking about. Wang Mianchang suppressed the shock in his heart and pretended to be stupid. Rolling his eyes helplessly, Craft popped a sofa's universal capsule behind him, sat down, and went straight to say, we are all said to be the same person in different worlds. I also dream of the dream of the Assassin Brotherhood. I've been here, it's just. Reaching out his hand and drew out a hidden blade that is countless times more refined than the one in Wang Mian's hand, Craft smiled bitterly. It's just that I can't learn the strange skills in the dream. I can only copy the various technological creations in it. Speaking of Craft, he rubbed Aurelie, who was sitting obediently next to him. The armor set and Aurelie just now were made with techniques learned from dreams. After seeing Craft take out the hidden blade, Wang Mian was convinced. But when he heard that Aurelie was actually made, he couldn't help his eyes widening. How are you? Aurelie pulled off his head very skillfully, scared Wang Mian and jumped a small step backward. Ha 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 ha. Being able to make another brother jump up with fright, makes Aurelie feel very fresh. After finally convinced Wang Mian of the parallel world, Craft asked the previous question again. How on earth did you learn ability in dreams? However, Wang Mian's answer made him disappointed. I don't know. It was the first and only time I dreamed of this strange dream after being beaten into the bottom of the river. After I woke up from a coma, I naturally learned the ability inside. When Craft envied Wang Mian also envied Craft. Although the assassin's ability gave him the power of revenge, he still had to copy the high technology in his dreams like Craft did if he wanted to mix well. It's a pity that he only dreamed about it once from start to finish, and the hidden blade in it was not a great technique. The most pitted thing is that if he wants to perfectly reproduce the ability in his dreams, he must wear that white robe. The higher the degree of reduction, the stronger the reproduced ability. Well, after listening to Wang Mian's explanation of his ability, Craft rubbed his chin and meditated for a while. Then he solemnly looked at Wang Mian, and asked every word, so, would you like to cooperate with me in some research? In return, I can help you update your equipment. The Wang Mian of this world does not have the special psychological shadow of Craft, so he readily agreed. Although he knew that the other party would probably agree, Craft breathed a sigh of relief when Wang Mian really agreed, and then he asked another question. Have your memory been amnesia? Wang Mian's information before smuggling to America could not be found by Angela's internet ability, only that he had smuggled over with an elder. After the death of that elder, Wang Mian himself has been in the Queen's area, not showing the status of a traverser or system owner, but he can dream of the content of the Assassin Brotherhood, and he also has Craft's similar but different ability. So Craft has always been curious about what happened to Wang Mian. How do you know? Probably when I was 4 or 5 years old, I had a high fever, and when I got better, I forgot all the previous things. Wang Mian glanced at Craft in surprise, and then remembered his current name and the same name as himself. So, have you lost your memory? Tisk, sure enough. Craft smacked his lips uncomfortably, and muttered softly. What is this? Is it the character setting? Since Wang Mian didn't know what was going on before Wang Mian lost his memory, Kraft didn't intend to talk more about some traversers or something that would make him more confused. Wang Mian has received enough information today. So Kraft just nodded. Yes, I lost my memory when I was about 7 or 8. After chatting with each other about their experiences, the two Krafts were speechless, because their childhood, both were miserable. Naturally, Kraft himself needn't say much. Wang Mian's childhood was also terrible. His parents died early, and he has been wandering with his uncle. Later, he sneaked into America with his uncle to make a lot of money. However, not long after arriving in America, he died of illness first. After all, he gradually worked hard, and the friend he knew died clean again. It feels like those so-called lone star destinies seen in the dream, destined to die without a companion, and to be alone for a lifetime. Thinking of this, Kraft couldn't help shivering, but fortunately, his relatives and friends were very good, unlike himself in this world. But he thought about it again. If it hadn't been for Angela and Aurelie to get Thanos done by himself, maybe it would be the same with a snap of the finger. So, as expected, it's because I'm good enough. Quietly shivering in his heart, Kraft stood up and planned to leave this terrible residence with the crown. Don't stay here, let's find a more comfortable place. It's not difficult for Kraft to find a new residence for Wang Mian. Whether it's using reality gem's illusion or using a holographic mask for disguise, as long as the appearance is replaced, in the chaotic place of Hell's Kitchen, finding a new place is very easy. Money is even simpler, not to mention Angela is there. You can directly rob the rich and help the poor on the internet. There is no difference between the two worlds USD, and you can actually use it if you want to. In addition, Wang Mian killed so many gangsters and gained a lot of money in their hands. He hid in that kind of tattered place just to hide his traces. Now with the holographic mask provided by Kraft's friendship, he has no reason to continue to abuse himself. Wang Mian and Kraft each purchased a propertyless building with a basement in the Hell's Kitchen. There are many such propertyless houses in Hell's Kitchen. It's just that they won't be finished when they are bought. In the next period of time, they may be found by some inexplicable people. After they have passed, the house will be truly regarded as a real estate. Yours. Even so, this type of housing is still very popular in Hell's Kitchen, because they never ask the buyer for the identity of the buyer. As for the reason for living apart, it's not because of dislike of yourself in the parallel world, but mainly because of Aurelie. Although he is in the parallel world, it seems not good to tear down other people's homes at every turn. After having a new residence, Kraft also took a moment to learn about the world from Angela. On the surface, this world is a bit worse than the original Spider-Man parallel world. The superhero with a name and a surname, apart from the Daredevil I've seen before, temporarily only has the Punisher, the arms maniac. And this Punisher Frank only appeared in the Hell's Kitchen not long ago, when Wang Mian's identity was revealed. Soon after he was surrounded and suppressed by the gang and the police, it could be said that he was almost following Wang Mian's class and began to trouble the gangsters. Because Frank's active time in Hell's Kitchen was too short, he did not attract the attention of others except the Irish gang that he had troubled with. Even the Irish people mistakenly thought that Wang Mian did it at first. On the side of the gang, the big fat man Jinian had been sent to prison by Daredevil some time ago. This is why Wang Mian and his friends will be involved in the gang struggle, because there is no gold and control the underground forces in New York, causing other gangs to start fighting with each other, grab business and territory, and then accidentally injured Wang Mian and them. In addition to Jinhee, there is also a bullseye that is a bit special. He did not go to jail with Jinhee. After Jinhee fell, he became a character similar to a mercenary. With that throwing technique, it's pretty cool. Some of the other criminals and gang members are all ordinary people, otherwise they wouldn't even be unable to catch Wang Mian as an assassin with a bucket of water. Although it seems that there is basically no special power in this world, Kraft has not forgotten that when he first arrived, he successfully mobilized the power of hell. Has it not erupted for the time being? In their own world, superpowers have frequently appeared in the public's vision for only a few years, but in fact they have existed for many years, such as Kamar Taj, who has always been hidden from the world. So Kraft would not think that this world is nothing more than that. However, America's official government does not even have a department dedicated to handling special events, which is a bit magical. It was the first time that Kraft encountered America that didn't do much human experimentation. In fact, it's not that they didn't do it, but the direction is different. They are not to make Superman, but to develop various types of drugs, and then sell them. It's very real. For the study of dreams, Kraft actually tried it a long time ago. After all, his own dreams appear completely randomly. After having a certain skill, Kraft naturally started the idea of triggering dreams. Unfortunately, after trying many times, Kraft didn't succeed. Either he dreamed of ordinary dreams, or did some repetitive dreams. But he always has the means to inspire special dreams, so he gave Wang Mian a try first. The result is, Wang Mian had dreams about the Assassin Brotherhood more than 10 times. Let me go. I really don't want to see the lives of Altair and Ezio again. Wang Mian, who crawled out of the ecological warehouse, grabbed Kraft by the arm and pleaded. I would rather not dream of the world of martial arts and immortality you mentioned, and don't want to go on sleeping anymore. I have already given up my sleep for the next week. It was the first time Wang Mian discovered that sleeping was such a terrible thing. Especially the mental exhaustion caused by multiple dreams, and the energetic body caused by long sleep. The conflict between the two makes him feel bad. Alright. Kraft smacked his lips regretfully. There is actually only one machine that can make oneself enter a special dream. Kraft asked Wang Mian to try so many times, just to confirm whether there will be an individual situation. The plan should be 100 attempts to start. For scientific research, it is not rigorous if there are not enough tests. It is a pity that the parallel world himself refuses to cooperate, and Kraft can only change his research direction. Although as a sample, 16 times are still a bit less, but only from the situation of these few times, most of my way of dreaming is not suitable for you. Kraft squeezed his chin and analyzed it. Then you can only try from the direction you have personally experienced. My personal experience. Suddenly, Wang Mian had an unknown foreboding in his heart. The first time you awakening the power of dreams, the key factors are serious injuries, falling into the water, and large emotional fluctuations, so we only need to test a single factor, a combination of two factors, and a complete set of 3 factors, a total of 7 situations. After holding his fingers to Wang Mian to calculate the 7 different situations, Kraft raised his head and grinned at him. Wang Mian. Don't come here. Sure enough, if you don't take the technological side, your brain is not easy to use. Kraft sighed helplessly, and then began to persuade Wang Mian to cooperate with him to continue the experiment. As the saying goes, the sky will come down to the people of Sri Lanka, and he must first suffer his mind, his muscles and bones, and his body and skin. Compared with the ability that might be obtained in the future, Wang Mian just needs to suffer a little bit, which is simply a bargain. Under Kraft's indoctrination, Wang Mian finally gritted his teeth and agreed. After all, the dreams that Kraft projected with reality gem are so fragrant. Whether it was the martial arts of slap a golden dragon or the celestial skill of the sword flight, Wang Mian was salivating, so it was just a mere drowning and crying. It's done. After convincing Wang Mian, Kraft put on a dream battlesuit and knocked him to the ground with 2 punches. Anyway, even if he was seriously injured, Kraft could heal him in minutes, so there would be no psychological barriers at all. As for how to stimulate Wang Mian's mood swings, this is actually very simple. After solving Thanos, in addition to Dr. Ma Lian's time gem, the other 5 infinite gems are now in Kraft's hands. Then, only need to use mind gem to give Wang Mian a light of grief. If you look at the success rate, you should try a serious injury plus drowning plus emotional agitation for the first time. However, in order to determine the factors that really worked, Kraft chose to start with only one factor. So Wang Mian unfortunately tried all the 7 combinations. How? Did you dream of new content? Wang Mian, who was paralyzed in the treatment cabin, heard the familiar question again, and he turned his godless eyes to Kraft with a look of expectation. Tears streaming out. You don't need to say, I know. Seeing Wang Mian's pitiful look, Kraft knew that this direction had also failed. It shouldn't be. Kraft folded his arms across his chest, with a puzzled face on his face. Forget it, I don't expect any martial arts magic. Climbing out of the treatment cabin tremblingly, Wang Mian decided to give up. Although his serious injury can be cured in the blink of an eye, and there are no sequelae, it can be overcome by gritting his teeth, but the drowning and the light of grief are real torture. He once thought that his will was firm, but now it seems that he really thinks too much. Hey. Is this giving up? Kraft reluctantly persuaded him again. If you can find the right way to dream, you can take off in an instant. Man, you should be cruel to yourself. Is that why you are so cruel to me? Matt Murdock's recent mood is not very beautiful. Before, he thought that sending Jin and the Emperor of the Underground Forces of New York into the Bureau would change the bad situation in Hell's Kitchen. However, he did not expect that after doing this, Hell's Kitchen not only did not get better, but even other places in New York all began to be confused. If it hadn't been for the assassin Kraft, the killing gods suddenly appeared, and this group of lawless gang members had been killed for fear, now New York would be even more chaotic. But Matt did not agree with Kraft's behavior. Although Daredevil treats the gangsters fiercely, and it's common to hurt his muscles and bones, Matt's bottom line is that he does not take lives. As a lawyer, he has always upheld his personal right to not judge others' lives. The rules. As a result, Kraft had just been silent for a few days, and a new killer appeared on the Irish side. Although the guy named Frank used a different weapon from Kraft, his attack was the same. Matt turned into Daredevil and fought against Frank several times, but because he was as unscrupulous as Frank, he was a little frustrated when fighting, which resulted in him not being able to prevent Frank from killing. It's the same today. After Frank killed his target, he threw a shock bomb at himself and his ears buzzed. However, he walked away, but he had nothing to do with him. Roar. Matt, who came out of the bathroom, let out a long sigh of breath, letting out some of the annoyance in his heart. Then he crossed the living room and walked towards the kitchen. Although Matt is blind, he is already familiar with the layout of his home, and there will be no bumps at all. When passing by the sofa in the living room, Matt shook the towel in his hand and threw it towards the intruder on the sofa. After Matt walked out of the bathroom, he had heard the deliberately suppressed roar absorption on the sofa, just pretending that no intruder was found, just for the surprise attack just now. However, the opponent was not a weak hand. He had already reacted as soon as Matt threw the towel out, and he hid directly behind the sofa, avoiding Matt's attack. Just as Matt tightened the towel and planned to continue attacking the intruder, a familiar voice rang. "Your ears are still so sharp, Matt." Hearing this sound with both charming and heroic qualities at the same time, Matt Murdock's body stiffened, and the movements in his hands naturally stopped. "You are Erica?" The owner of the voice is Erica Natchez, his girlfriend from Matt University. This is a very powerful woman in all aspects, but it was a pity that after graduating from university, she suddenly disappeared, and it made Matt sad for a while. "It's been a long time, Matt." Erica walked catwalk around from behind the sofa to Matt's side, and leaned over to kiss Matt on the cheek. However, facing Erica's kiss, Matt took a quick step back. He frowned and said to Erica, "I have a girlfriend." Probably thinking that this is a bit unkind, Matt added, "What can you do with me?" "It's like this." Erica, who was evaded, didn't care, sat down on the sofa again, and said what she wanted. "I recently returned to New York with the intention of retrieving the assets of my father, but found that they have been taken by others, so I would like to ask you to take those assets back for me." If it is normal, Matt would be fine to help, but now there are too many things in Hell's Kitchen, and he has no spare time to deal with this little mess of his ex-girlfriend. However, as a lawyer, Matt gave his own opinion. If you have documents proving that it is your father's inheritance, then any lawyer can solve this problem. If there is no such kind of data, then there is nothing I can do. Matt turned to his side and expressed the meaning of seeing off the guests. "From the previous relationship, I won't charge you consulting fees." "You are really ruthless." Erica didn't stalk her either, she joked casually, got up and left. Originally, her main purpose of coming to Matt was not to really want him to help herself in a lawsuit. It was enough to see that Matt was still able to fight as before. Roar. After sending Erica away, Matt exhaled again. He always had a hunch that Erica's affair was not over. The fact is also true. The next day, Erica went directly to the law firm where Matt worked, and once again asked for a commission. Although Matt still didn't want to accept this commission, as a partner, Fergie Nielsen had agreed to him one step ahead. "You might as well agree to come down last night and save me more time." Erica smiled and dropped this imaginative sentence, and then took a graceful catwalk to leave Matt's office. Feeling the sharp gaze cast by his secretary and current girlfriend, Matt smiled helplessly, then turned his head to comfort Karen Page. That night, Matt Murdock put on his red Daredevil battlesuit and sneaked into a building in Hell's Kitchen. Now that he has accepted Erica's request, he can only help her resolve the matter as soon as possible. According to Erica, although she has documents to prove that those properties were left to her by her father, the actual value of those properties is determined by those who are taking care of them. If you rush to find it, the other party says that Erica's father's property did not make money but loses money, and then it is not impossible to mistake Erica for a sum. No, it should be said that the possibility is very high. It's Hell's Kitchen after all, this kind of thing is too common. So what Matt needs to do now is to steal the relevant books first. According to Matt's investigation, the owner of this building, like most other capitalists, likes to set up his office on the highest floor, and then install the safe for storing important information in his office. Using his abnormal ear power to avoid the guards in the building, Matt kept moving to the top of the building. In the process of sneaking in, Matt noticed some abnormal situations. Strange, it's so late. Why are there so many people here? If it is just that there are too many security personnel in the building, it can also be said that the boss here pays more attention to his own property. However, a large part of these security personnel did not patrol the building, but gathered together and were walking downstairs, seeming to have other purposes. Nosy is an indispensable skill for every superhero. Matt Murdock doesn't need to think about it. After discovering the abnormal behavior of this group of security personnel, he immediately put aside the account book, turned around and started tracking the group of live ammunition security. Following the group of security personnel to the underground garage, Matt randomly chose a truck they were riding in, hid quietly under the car, and followed the vehicle all the way to a dark factory. That's Mrs. Gao. Based on the footsteps and heartbeats of the people walking out of the factory, Matt recognized the identity of the person who was handing over with the group of security guards. As one of the biggest medicines in the underground in New York, Mrs. Gao has always been on Matt's watch list, and He has been in jail and she has also been cooperating. It's just that Mrs. Gao has been hiding herself very well all the time. Matt only hit her sales channels, but the pharmaceutical point was never found. Today, I was able to accidentally hit and find Mrs. Gao's pharmaceutical factory, which is definitely a surprise. So Matt took advantage of the security personnel to load the goods and sneaked into the pharmaceutical factory behind Mrs. Gao. After entering the factory, Matt realized that Mrs. Gao's pharmaceutical factory had not been discovered by himself. Because the pharmaceutical workers inside are all blind, they are locked up in the factory by Mrs. Gao and have no way of contacting the outside world. And when working, the lights are not turned on here, so it is natural that the factory is still working outside. Damn it. After discovering this cannibalistic factory, Matt was thinking about how to rescue the workers inside. If they can't be rescued all at once, Mrs. Gao will transfer the factory. It will be even more difficult to find them again. However, just as Matt Murdock planned to retreat temporarily, and then contact the police to destroy the pharmaceutical factory, there were bursts of roars, shouts and a strange buzzing sound outside. Matt followed the sound to the door of the factory, only then could he hear what was going on. Kraft, who had been silent for several days, reappeared, fighting with the previous security personnel and Mrs. Gao's men. What puzzled Matt was that although he could hear someone fighting against Mrs. Gao and the others, he couldn't hear the other person's heartbeat. Kraft's identity was confirmed from roars, shouts from others. In addition, unlike the usual way of infiltrating, killing, and fleeing using normal assassin methods, Kraft chose a frontal raid this time. In Matt's ears, the bullets shot by those gangsters hit Kraft's body, and it didn't seem to cause any harm, crackling like a pebble hitting a leather jacket. The strange buzzing sound came from the weapons in Kraft's hands. Judging from the sound of wind when he wielded the weapon, Kraft's weapon should be the lightsaber in Star Wars. Awakening's dream power failed. Wong Mian didn't feel any regrets, but he was greatly relieved. It is really terrifying to be in the parallel world. It feels like the kind of Frankenstein in the movie. Once you enter the research state, you don't think of yourself as a person at all. This self refers to both Wong Mian and Kraft. Fortunately, Kraft can still communicate normally. Under Wong Mian's strong request, although the other party regrets a bit, he still followed Wong Mian's new ideas and did not continue to study. And Kraft also provided him with a new set of equipment. An assassin's white robe capable of one-click dressing, bulletproof and riot, with optical camouflage, energy barrier, anti-gravity system and other magical functions. The hidden blade, which is dominated by adamantium and liquid metal, is not only extremely hard, but also has the ability to shapeshifting at will. Except that the eye inside is not Angela, it is just an ordinary smart assistant, and the other functions are the same nano-smart headsets as Kraft. There are also a bunch of magical props that I don't know if I need it, and the function is messy. And Wong Mian is now holding the same lightsaber of Star Wars constantly waving. With these equipment, Wong Mian can finally proudly express that he can finally rush into the crowd like the assassin named Connor Wyken in his dream. The modern firearms that used to make Wong Mian a headache, now hit him without pain at all. This is still the case when he has not opened the energy barrier. Under the premise that the firearms are not working, these ordinary security personnel are not Wong Mian's enemy at all, not to mention that he still has two indestructible lightsabers in his hands. The members of these gangs basically die by touch and die, without any resistance to ability. That is to say, the group of ninjas under Mrs. Gao's is a little bit troublesome. Although the attack power and defense power are not good, they are very agile, and it takes a little effort to jump up and down. And after hacking them to death, they will not leave their bodies, but disappear into a cloud of black smoke, which looks a little weird. Wong Mian, who has fought against Daredevil several times, naturally does not think that he is the only one with special abilities in this world. Even if he once thought so, Kraft also specially reminded him that there is hell in this world. However, although these ninjas are a bit ability, they are not Wong Mian's opponents. Facing his pair of lightsabers flying up and down, these ninjas can hardly escape the end of black smoke. Damn it. What the hell is going on with this guy? Although a scene of a retro-dressed assassin wielding a lightsaber looks a bit cyberpunk, the new ability, or new equipment, that Kraft showed, made Mrs. Gao more vigilant. The death of the ninjas under his men will not make Mrs. Gao feel distressed. Anyway, these ninja soldiers will be able to resurrect through the magic circle of the hand-to-hand union soon, but if Kraft cannot be stopped here, his pharmaceutical factory will have to abandon it. Ends. Originally, because of Jin Bing's imprisonment, Mrs. Gao's sales channels had already experienced problems. Now that the production line has problems, her business in New York has lost a lot. Just losing money is nothing to Mrs. Gao, an old rich woman who has lived for more than 400 years, but she will develop her influence in New York, mainly because she is looking for the keel that can continue the lives of the 5 leaders of their hand-to-hand association. Alexandra's lifespan is running out, and they don't have so much time to waste. Thinking of this, Madame Gao gritted her teeth and joined the battle. Mrs. Gao, who looks like a thin old lady, actually has a good kung fu, and relying on the accumulation of time, she has also developed a kind of distance palm power. Although he couldn't cause any harm to Wang Mian wearing a god costume, it could affect his movements. With the addition of Mrs. Gao, Wang Mian Kai Wushwang's efficiency dropped a lot. At this time, the ordinary security guards had either been chopped into several sections by Wang Mian, or they had noticed that the situation was not good, and they had fled early. Only Mrs. Gao and her ninja soldiers were left behind. A group of people with special abilities turned upside down in the open space in front of the pharmaceutical factory. However, the more entangled with Wang Mian, the more Mrs. Gao retreated. The 5 fingers that they joined together were different from those ninja soldiers who were transformed by the magic circle in the resurrection. Although they also have the means of resurrection, they must return the corpse to the headquarters in Japan, and then use the power of the dragon bone and the magic circle to resurrect, and if the corpse is greatly damaged, they will not be able to recover. So in the face of Wang Mian's 2 lightsabers, which never needed a second shot, Madame Gao didn't dare to get too close, she could only rely on the power of the air to constantly contain him. Just as Mrs. Gao was getting more and more frightened and ready to run away at any time, she suddenly heard a noise from the pharmaceutical factory behind her. It turned out that the daredevil who was hiding from the side discovered that Wang Mian and Mrs. Gao were facing each other. He immediately seized the opportunity and returned to the pharmaceutical factory, knocked down the few guards inside, and rescued all the blind workers. Came out. At the same time, Matt also notified the New York police, telling them the situation here. Dare Demon. Seeing the red figure running out of the factory, Mrs. Gao gritted her teeth with hatred. Jin Bin's sales route was destroyed in the hands of this damn superhero, and now she has destroyed her pharmaceutical factory. It can be said that most of their plans to cooperate with each other were disturbed by Daredevil. But now was not the time to entangle with Daredevil. Mrs. Gao, who had already retreated, no longer hesitation. After leaving the ninja soldier to break, he turned and ran. After Wang Minjiang's ninja soldiers haunting him were chopped into fly ash, Mrs. Gao had already run away without a trace, replaced by a red daredevil. At this time, Wang Mian had been informed by Kraft that the other party was Matt Murdock, a well-known blind lawyer in Hell's Kitchen. Kraft, I want to have a good talk with you. Although Wang Mian's heartbeat could not be heard, Matt still located his exact location based on the beep of the lightsaber. I don't think there is anything to discuss with you. The Tao is different and does not seek each other. Wang Mian can't accept Matt's ideas, and doesn't want to engage in meaningless nonsense with him. Putting away the lightsaber in his hand, Wang Mian, who didn't want to be too entangled with Daredevil, directly turned on the stealth mode of the assassin's white robe, hiding his figure while also shielding all sounds and temperatures, and left here. Not everything can be solved by force. Matt, the blind man, didn't even know that Wang Mian had left, and spoke the truth to the air in front of him. There was a lot of babbling, until the sound of a police siren sounded outside. Matt stopped his preaching. Although unlike Wang Mian and Frank, Daredevil has no lives in his hands, but street heroes like them have not been popular with officials. So Matt shook his head at Wang Mian, and said to the air, "The police are here, let's talk to another place." Kraft? Are you still there? Just when Wang Mian relied on the equipment he provided to kill in Hell's Kitchen, Kraft took Angela and Areli to Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal, thousands of miles away. Although no supreme magician came to the door, and Kamar Taj's holy place was not found in New York, Kraft still wanted to try his luck. After all, there is still hell in this world, and maybe Kamar Taj still has it.
When Kamar Taj is found, the time gem will probably be whereabouts. Even if the supreme magician is still Ancient One, Kraft plans to grab a wave. Since the other party did not take the initiative to find him, most of them don't know him. Naturally, there is nothing to be embarrassed about.
It's a pity that Kraft's abacus was crackling, but Kamar Taj could not be found in Nepal. The temples and monks I met asked themselves for money for sesame oil, or recommended to themselves the lighted Shiva drum, the lighted Vishnu conch, and the lighted Ganesha's ivory category of goods.
Tisk. There really is no Kamar Taj in this world. Infinite Gems has no clue.
Kraft looked at the Infinite Gems radar that hadn't scanned anything, and curled his lips uncomfortably. The time gem could not be found, and the development of the fairy dreamland for self also failed. The level of technology and superpowers in this world can't keep up with the original world. It feels like a trip to this world, nothing has been gained. Ha 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 ha. Brother, come soon. This thing is so interesting. Areli squatted in front of a street stall in Nepal, beckoning and shouting to Kraft. Angela followed her with a smile on her face. Regardless, just take my sister out to play. Kraft thought about it. One of the purposes of traveling through the parallel world was to make Areli have fun. He shouldn't have calculated so much. What interesting thing did you find again? Walking to Areli's side, Kraft bent down and looked at the stall in front of him while rubbing Areli's small head. What Areli fancy is the Ganesha doll, which is the Ganesha mentioned earlier, which is the god of wisdom in Hinduism and can be seen everywhere in Nepal, where Hinduism prevails. And these Ganeshas were made into puppets that could be used for puppet shows, and under the control of the stall owner, they made various movements of unknown meaning, which caused Alalay to laugh. Seeing that Areli liked it, Kraft was too lazy to bargain, and chose a color she liked for Areli, and also bought another color for Angela by the way. Although Angela looked disgusted, she reached out and took it, and accompanied Areli to fight with this Ganesha doll. The three brothers and sisters stopped and went all the way, wandering around the streets of Nepal. Kraft doesn't lack money, so Kraft bought everything Areli saw. Then they were spotted by the Nepalese gangsters. Boy. Give me all the money you have. A group of gangsters who knew how to mess up from their outfits surrounded the Kraft trio. It was probably the leading man shouting at them with a bad English, and the dagger in his hand was not sullen. Lost, there are even a few gaps. Before Kraft could react, Areli ran to the group of punks with short legs, drew in his pocket, and stretched out his little fist. Give you. Count you acquaintance. The little bastard spread out his palm and placed it under Areli's fist. Areli opened her fist with a grin, and the two thumbs, file size, fell from her hand to the little bastard's palm. What is this? The little bastard raised his palm under his nose and distinguished it carefully. Then he fell angrily to the ground. Isn't this a pit? Ha 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 ha. Areli clutched her belly and laughed. What she gave to the punk was the pit that was left when she ate the fruit before. You dare to fool me. The angry little bastard raised the dagger and stabbed Areli's body. It's a pity that Areli just stretched out 2 fingers and pinched the other's blade, making it impossible to advance. Ouch. Areli pinched the blade, and with a slight force, the entire blade was crushed into pieces. Weird, monster. This group of small gangsters was so scared that they backed back again and again, and instantly opened up a long distance from Areli. Well, Kraft, who felt that he didn't need to be so restrained in the parallel world, just thought about it for 3 seconds, and said to Areli, Areli, how are you happy, except that you are not allowed to hit the ground with your fist? Yes. Areli, who got the approval of Kraft, gave a happy roar, and then rushed towards the group of gangsters with a big laugh. Hey. All the little gangsters' memories stayed in seeing the little girl throw a fist at herself, and then they didn't know anything. After punching all the hapless gangsters into the air, Areli ran back to Kraft's side and straightened his head to beg him for praise. Kraft also stretched out his hand very skillfully, rubbing Alal's little head and praised, It's so good, Alala is such a good boy. More than a dozen large living people flew from the sky. Such a big movement naturally attracted the attention of others, that Kraft, who had already planned to free himself and free Areli, didn't care about this, and continued with the weird gazes of those people. Wandered around in Kathmandu. Nepalese officials will naturally not sit idly by such dangerous elements. Soon, a group of Nepalese soldiers came in front of the Kraft trio, but they did not show any extreme behavior, but quietly lined up on both sides. After that, a figure who was probably an interpreter came forward and talked with Kraft in Chinese, with a very polite tone. Excuse me. How many distinguished guests came to Nepal? What happened? Kraft won't make trouble unreasonably when the other party talks so much. He simply told the truth. I'm here to look for a place called Kamar Taj, which is a holy place for magicians. The translator was taken aback for a moment, and stared at Kraft carefully for a while. After confirming that the other party was not deliberately using himself, the translator bowed slightly and said, I'm sorry, I haven't heard of Kamar Taj, but if you need it, I can help and consult. The translator's words are a reminder for Kraft. Perhaps the officials of these countries will have news about special groups of people. Then bother you. Kraft nodded to the translator. The translator turned his head and gave a few words to the soldiers who came with him in the local Nepalese language. The soldiers quickly left after responding, but the translator still stayed. If you don't mind, Then I will lead a few distinguished guests to visit Kathmandu. I grew up here and know the most delicious and fun places here. If he refuses, it is estimated that the Nepalese official will send someone to follow along. Kraft didn't have any bad plans. It would be best to have an official person as a tour guide, so he didn't do more hesitation and agreed. So the three of Kraft, led by this translator named Krishna, took a good tour of Kathmandu. However, there is one point. Although Kathmandu is the capital of Nepal, there are not many places that are really interesting, and the food is average. That is to say, the girl Areli is easy to send, and I have a good time along the way. Although sometimes accidentally demolished a little innocuous building or the like, but Krzina had no objection, so Kraft naturally pretended not to see it. After Areli once again tore down the outer wall of a temple, Krzina found Kraft with a stiff expression. Sorry, we didn't find any information about Kamar Taj. Kraft has already been mentally prepared for this. After all, if there is really Kamar Taj, it is unlikely that the supreme magician will not come to him, a visitor from other parallel time and space. However, Krzina's conversation soon changed. Although we don't know where Kamar Taj is, there is news of another special crowd gathering place. Oh? Kraft raised his eyebrows, and sure enough, those mysterious forces still left traces more or less. Seeing Kraft's expression of interest, Krzina hurriedly revealed the news that should have been tightly covered, and they now wanted to send the three little ancestors away quickly. That is a holy land called Kunlun, and the location is in the Himalayas. This place of Kunlun, Kraft naturally knows. After getting on the line with the Spear Bureau, Kraft, who wanted to cultivate immortality, once contacted Kunlun through them, which is the birthplace of the power of the Iron Fist. But the power of this Iron Fist is very troublesome. You must first practice martial arts in Kunlun, stand out among a group of Kunlun warriors, and then undergo the trial of Iron Fist, that is, fight with an immortal dragon named Shou Lao. After defeating it, you can obtain the full power of the Iron Fist. After understanding the process of obtaining Iron Fist's power, Kraft suddenly lost interest. Because he knows the latest Iron Fist Danny Rand, his own Martin Daddy doesn't need negative emotional energy or negative film battlesuit, and he can be beaten into a weak dog. It takes so much trouble to obtain such a bit of power, and Kraft naturally gave up directly at the beginning. The most important thing is that the immortal dragon Shou Lao had been killed by Danny Rand, and he was still accumulating energy waiting to be resurrected, even if Kraft wanted to skip the mess of things through the spear game. Slaying the dragon, there is no dragon to slay him. So when I heard that this world also has Kunlun, and Angela did not find a trace of Iron Fist, Kraft's interest rose again. Anyway, the immortal dragon can continue to resurrect. Kraft feels that he can go to the group of people in Kunlun to trade a wave, if they refuse to trade. Then sneak in and kill the immortal dragon. Thank you for the news. Kraft made up his mind with a big smile, then took out a universal capsule and handed it to Krzina. This thing will be given to you as a thank you gift. This is. Krzina's pupils searched fiercely, and flattered he took the universal capsule in Kraft's hand. Accompanied on this day, apart from being frightened by the little girl named Areli, Krzina also saw various magical props that Kraft took out from time to time. The universal capsule in his hand was naturally one of them. After purchasing a lot of things, Kraft used this kind of capsule to make a big box, put the goods in and restored it as a capsule. In addition, he has also used this capsule to conjure everyday tools such as bicycles. Don't you know if you try it yourself? Kraft smiled and sold it off. Krzina just hesitation for a while. He pressed the button of the capsule in his hand, and then he had a set of simple exoskeleton arms on his body. This set of exoskeleton arms was modified by Kraft according to a thing called Megalobox in the Dreamland. Originally, the Megalobox in the Dreamland was used for boxing matches. Kraft transformed it into an enhanced arm strength exoskeleton device. When he got the Megalobox technology, Kraft didn't need this kind of equipment with very low bonus at all. He just made one habitually after dreaming it, and now it happens to be handed over to Krishna for waste utilization. As for whether Nepal will spend a lot of time and money to reverse the technology after obtaining the Megalobox and the Universal Capsule, Kraft does not matter. Let alone whether the Nepalese government has the technology to roll out the technology. Even if it rolls out, without the bonus of dream power, they will not be able to recover the Universal Capsule, but Megalobox is so possible. However, without the bonus of the power of dreams, this thing is not very practical and cost-effective. If the Nepalese officials really study Kraft's gifts, there is a high probability that they will lose money. And Krishna, who didn't know these joints, was feeling the power that Megalobox brought to him with excitement on his face. However, Krishna was selected by the Nepalese officials to receive Kraft and their professionals. After a moment of gaffe, he suppressed the excitement in his heart and put away the exoskeleton armor on his body. This gift is too expensive, thank you for your generosity. Bowing deeply to Kraft, Kurzina suddenly didn't want to send Kraft and the others away so quickly. If he had known that Kraft would be so generous, he would have made great efforts to please the other party. We have prepared a splendid dinner for the 3 distinguished guests. I wonder if Mr. Lee can appreciate it? However, it is not too late to please. Kurzina's attitude has become extremely positive. As for the sumptuous dinner, it was naturally not prepared before, but it is only a matter of minutes to prepare. It's a pity that Kraft is not interested in the sumptuous dinner, he said. After walking around in Kathmandu before, he didn't encounter a food that suits his appetite. He didn't think the so-called dinner would be any better. If I really want something delicious, Kraft might as well just open the portal and go home and let Alice make it for him. Rejecting Kurzina's invitation, Kraft opened the portal to the Himalayas under the surprised gaze of the opponent, and walked in with Angela and Areli. Well, where should I find that Kunlun next? The faint light film blocked the snow and wind on the Himalayas, and Kraft looked at the white surroundings without any clue. Not to mention that Kraft has never been to Kunlun in the original world. It doesn't matter whether Kunlun in the 2 worlds is in the same position or not, just like Kamar Taj, it just disappears. The same is true for Hell. Using the Hell coordinates of Kraft's own world, he was teleported to a deserted planet in this world. However, since the Nepalese officials can find the existence of Kunlun, it will not be too difficult to find. Kraft sprinkled a group of reconnaissance planes and began to search around the entire Himalayas. As the so-called knowledge is power, Kraft quickly found a special location under the carpet search of the reconnaissance plane. Contrary to what Kraft guessed, Kunlun was not placed on the highest Mount Everest, but placed at an altitude of about 5 kilometers. According to the information returned by the reconnaissance plane, although there was no trace of human life there was a strange spatial fluctuation. Obviously, this Kunlun is still somewhat ability, hiding their base camp in a pocket dimension. Is it here? Kraft came to the place with abnormal spatial fluctuations. It was not so different from other places in the Himalayas. It was cold and barren. Apart from snow and rocks, there were basically no other things to see. Hey. I just found an unstable space channel. I thought it was a pocket dimension created by the people of Kunlun. After arriving at the site for a more detailed inspection, Kraft was suddenly disappointed. This place should be connected to a pocket dimension due to some accidental reasons. It is a space channel formed by non-human factors, which makes this channel unstable. According to the analysis of Kraft's instruments, this channel will be automatically opened once in about 10 years. Obviously, the existence of Kunlun is only known to outsiders for this reason. And this also let Kraft know that Kunlun people can't use this space channel. As for whether the people in Kunlun can take the initiative to open this channel, you will know after a try. Kraft recalled the lines of those martial artists in the dream, and bowed his hands towards the space passage in front. After the end of school, I will enter Li Yi and come to worship the mountain. Please also the seniors from Kunlun show up. Areli next to him saw it, and followed the way of Kraft, shouting into the air in front of him. How are you? Rumbling. A roar came from above Kraft, accompanied by a large amount of snow pouring from above. Ha 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 ha. Brother, look. It's an avalanche. The culprit Areli pointed at the snow waves approaching above and laughed. Kraft. Ah. I saw. On the Himalayas, the thick snow suddenly formed a small packet, and then Kraft got out of it under the energy shield. Bah. Bah. Although protected by the energy shield, Kraft did not eat the snow into his mouth, but after he got out of the snowdrift, he subconsciously swallowed twice. Ha 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 ha. Big brother, it's so funny. Areli jumped out from the side with the snowflakes on his head, and after correcting the glasses on the bridge of his nose, he reached out and tugged at the corner of Kraft's clothes. Can I do it again? Alright. Seeing Areli's expectant look, Kraft smiled helplessly, and then patted the snowflakes on her head. Areli, who got Kraft's consent, put her hands together in her mouth, and shouted at the snow mountain above with a louder volume than before. How are you? Probably the previous avalanche has used up all the snow that could be shaken down. Areli waited for a long time, but did not see a second avalanche form. Oh. Brother, there is no avalanche. I can't do anything about this. Kraft smiled bitterly, and when he was about to change the topic to divert Areli's attention, Angela next to him suddenly opened her mouth. How are you? Boom. Looking at the avalanche above by Angela's hello cannon, the corners of Kraft's mouth twitched. Sure enough, among them, Areli was the one who favored Angela the most. After the 3 of them crawled out of the snowdrift again, Kraft worried that Areli would come again, and quickly said, there is no response from Kunlun on such a big movement outside. It seems that most of them can't know the outside world. That's the case. Kraft, who said that, took out the portal gun easily, locked the position of the space channel, and pulled the trigger in his hand. A green light shot from the muzzle, and under Kraft's control, it split a hole in the invisible space passage, exposing the ancient building complex at the other end of the passage. Wow! So beautiful! Rayleigh was instantly distracted by the misty and ethereal scene in front of him. The overall composition in this pocket dimension is still dominated by a mountain. It's just different from the snow-capped Himalayas. Although the mountains here are towering into the clouds, the climate is very pleasant. The ancient Chinese buildings on the mountains are surrounded by clouds and are set off like a fairyland in Eastern mythology. Even Kraft guessed that many of the Eastern myths in this world were derived from this Kunlun secret realm. Who is here? When Kraft came to the Kunlun secret realm through the space channel, the people here finally reacted. A group of black-haired and yellow-skinned Asians surrounded the three of Kraft. They wore ancient practice clothes and spoke Chinese that made Kraft feel kind, and there was a little ancient meaning in their speech. Kraft has the feeling of watching martial arts and fairy tale dreams. The only thing that came to Kraft that I felt violated was. Among this group of Kunlun people, there are those who wear Taoist hair buns, and some have shaved heads and burn ring scars, but their clothes are all uniformly uniform, which looks very awkward. Abandoning this strange composition of personnel, this place still fits Kraft's imagination of Kunlun Wonderland. So Kraft clasped his fists and arched his hands again. I will enter Li Yi after the end of school, and after hearing the name of Kunlun Wonderland, come to worship the mountain. The group of Kunlunmen looked at each other, wondering what was going on. Because Kunlun's secret realm is open to the outside world once every 10 years, it is impossible for outsiders to come in at ordinary times. Even if the people in Kunlun wanted to go out, they had to obtain permission from the leader, the Jade Emperor, to receive a special token from him, and to pass the barrier of their own strength to break through the obstacles and head to the outside world. Several people from Kunlun who are usually more prestigious gathered together and muttered quietly for a while, and then one person came out and nodded to Clough, and said, "You stay here, I will report to Lord Jade." Jade Emperor. Kraft, who heard the name, couldn't help but raised his brows. A guy who can't even control the space channel, actually has the face to call himself the Jade Emperor. But after all, there is something to ask for. Although Kraft was not very cold with this so-called Jade Emperor, he did not show it. After a while, the Kunlun clan who left before came over with a big monk with a beard. This monk didn't make any trouble with a moth. He was wearing a monk robe that fits his identity. Behind him, he was followed by two young people dressed like other Kunlunmen. One was a blonde white man, and the other looked at. It's kind of like Indian. Master Thunder, that's them. The man who led the way pointed at Kraft and said to the monk. Kraft grinned, and actually called a monk Lei Gong. He didn't know how to complain. What are you doing here? The monk named Lei Gong asked straightforwardly. Although he spit out the names of these people in Kunlun madly in his heart, Kraft still maintained his proper etiquette. He bowed slightly and replied, "I heard that this place can obtain a special power called the Power of Iron Fist, so came here to see it." Joke. The power of the Iron Fist is the highest inheritance of Kunlun. How can you be coveted by an outsider? Before Lei Gong had spoken, the Indian behind him jumped out and shouted at Kraft in fluent Chinese. "EMMMM. In contrast, I think the two are more like outsiders." Kraft has never been a willing temperament, especially when the opponent is not a compatriot. "What are you talking about?" Davos. Seeing that the Indian became angry and embarrassed, he was about to do something to himself, and the monk named Lei Gong stopped him. Under Thunder's obstruction, Davos stopped angrily, but still stared at Kraft fiercely. Being able to enter the Kunlun secret realm is destined, but if you want to gain the power of the Iron Fist, you must practice here, and then you can obtain the qualification to inherit the power of the Iron Fist through battle. Lei Gong, or Kunlun, did not have the idea of cherishing himself, otherwise they would not go out every 10 years to find a suitable descendant of the Iron Fist and bring them back. In addition, Lei Gong did not intend to investigate how Kraft and the others entered Kunlun. Because of the instability of the space channel, occasionally there may be situations where someone strayed into it before the opening time, and Lei Gong thought the same was true of Kraft. But I'm not interested in cultivating. Kraft scratched his head, and asked with an inch of precision, "Anyway, that old man will be resurrected. Why don't you let me try it first? I can use other things to trade this opportunity with you, how about?" However, the opposite Lei Gong immediately assumed a fighting posture, and sternly asked Kraft, "How do you know the method of inheriting the power of the Iron Fist?" "Oh, a person named Zheng Xian told me that if he wants to obtain the inheritance of the Iron Fist, he must challenge an immortal dragon named Shou Lao in Kunlun, and then use her heart to forge the power of the Iron Fist." Kraft told the truth, but Lei Gong was taken aback. Although the way to obtain the power of Iron Fist is not a secret in Kunlun, most people just know that they need to challenge Shou Lao. Only a few people who have tried Iron Fist can be so familiar with the specific steps. But Lei Gong was very sure that there was absolutely no one named Zheng Xian among these people, and even those who could know the specific steps were either dead or had never left Kunlun at all. I don't know where you got the news, but if you want to get the power of the Iron Fist, you must abide by Kunlun's rules. We won't make any deals with you. After confirming that Kraft did not have any conspiracy, but simply wanted to jump in the line to obtain the power of the Iron Fist, Thunder King decisively rejected Kraft. Kunlun's rule is to defeat everyone who wants to participate in the trial, right? Kraft clapped his hands. The matter is simple. As long as I defeat all those people, you will let me challenge Shou Lao? Although Kraft asked in a very sincere tone, it really angered everyone except Thunder. Don't be ashamed. An Indian in Davos not only speaks Chinese, but also speaks idioms. He pointed to Kraft with his hand, and shouted angrily. Let me try you to see what qualifications you have to speak out here. After finishing speaking, Davos kicked his feet directly over Thunderlord, and slammed a fist at Kraft condescendingly. For Davos's shot, Thunder did not stop him this time, because he also felt that Kraft was too arrogant, so it would be good to let Davos take a shot. Lei Gong, who has been practicing martial arts for many years, saw it at a glance. Although Kraft's body has undergone certain training, it has not undergone any systematic combat training. Davos still finds it easy to win him. However, the situation was not as Lei Gong thought. Not only did Kraft easily pass Davos's swift blow, he even had room to counterattack Davos. A side sliding step avoided Davos' fist. Kraft's body twisted, his body turned in a circle, and his right leg drew towards Davos' waist like a steel whip. Fortunately, Davos is not a vegetarian either. He put up his arms in time and blocked him, but he was still kicked by huge amounts of power. Before Davos could stand firmly, Kraft switched his right foot into the axis and turned a half circle. A powerful sidekick hit Davos in the chest and kicked him away. Okay. Brother is super handsome. Aureli waved his arms, jumping around to join him. Because he knew Kunlun's rules from the very beginning, Kraft was already prepared to turn over the clockwork bandage that had accumulated dust for a long time, and also wrote some new ones from the God Spear game to it. The fighting information that I got. Just now Kraft was completely beaten Davos by the automatic battle program of the clockwork bandage. If he only relied on his own fighting skills, it would be very difficult to dodge. If it's all at this level, I don't think I just uttered a rant. Although he defeated Davos by cheating, Kraft put on the appearance of a masterpiece, gently brushed his sleeves twice, and said lightly. No, although I used props, the clockwork bandage was originally my own hand, so I did not cheat. So Kraft became more justified. What did you say? Bold. Presumptuous. When the other Kunlunmen heard Kraft's arrogant words, they began to yell. There are even those who are grumpy, and like Davos, they choose to do it directly. However, the strength of this group of people is not as good as Davos, and they are simply vulnerable to Kraft's automatic battle. After a few roar drinks and the clashing of fists and feet, the Kunlun doorman fell to the ground, and Kraft still looked calm and breezy. Lei Gong, who has been silent since Davos started his hand, squinted his eyes. He finally saw some clues. When the intruder who claimed to be Li Yi was fighting, his gaze and body movements were the same most of the time. It doesn't match. Lei Gong guessed that there should be some kind of power controlling Kraft's body, but he did not guess in the direction of technology, but thought that Kraft was possessed by some mysterious existence. The purpose was in order to seize the power of Kunlun's Iron Fist. Stop it. Lei Gong stopped drinking and wanted to continue going up, Danny Rand and other Kunlunmen. The other party is not something you can deal with. Don't go up and take humiliation anymore. So, can I challenge Shou Lao now? Seeing Lei Gong confessing his strength, Kraft asked immediately. Lei Gong was silent for a moment, stretched out his hand to tear off his monk's robe, and put on a fighting posture. The inheritance of the Iron Fist cannot fall into the hands of people with unhealthy minds. If you want to challenge Shou Lao, you must first win. Who do you think is wrong? Kraft suddenly became unhappy. Although he wanted the power of an Iron Fist, didn't he make a good transaction request? Why do you say that he is not righteous? After that, they denied Kraft's deal and said that they should follow the rules. Isn't it reasonable to defeat other challengers by the rules? Although I cheated. Although he used the props, he also made the props by himself. It is okay to rely on his own ability, right? Stop talking nonsense. Take it. Lei Gong is not interested in continuing to talk nonsense with Kraft, the possessed puppet. He leapt over 10 meters to reach Kraft in a single stride, carrying Roar's wind with both hands, with extreme excitement. Fiercely attacked Kraft. Kraft's body moved on its own again, waving his hands quickly, accurately slapped all the fists thrown by Lei Gong, and then punch him on the shoulder with a backhand. As the chief coach of Kunlun, Lei Gong is different from ordinary Kunlun disciples. The moment he was hit by Kraft's fist, he noticed the tremendous strength on it, so Lei Gong directly followed this strength and turned back twice. Circle, after removing most of the damage, his fist suddenly lit up and smashed towards Kraft in an overwhelming manner. Because the speed of Thunder's violent attack was more than a bit faster than before, Kraft's automatic combat system didn't even have time to react, and he was hit by his pair of glowing fists. The power of the iron fist on Lei Gong's fists was like a strong explosive, exploding with exaggerated power, knocking Kraft upside down and flying out. Gone. I made a mistake. Kraft, who had rolled on the ground more than a dozen laps, got up from the ground, slapped the dust on his body, and muttered depressedly. He used to be based on the strength of the iron fist in the original world, and felt that it was enough to sling them with a clockwork bandage. He did not expect that the same power of the iron fist was also used, and the gap between Danny Rand and Lei Gong was so big. In addition to the clockwork bandage, Kraft's body was also equipped with nano inner armor, so although Thunder's punch was full of power, it did not cause any harm to him. The clockwork bandage was originally not strong enough to withstand the iron fist, the internal chip had been burned, and a small, inconspicuous black smoke slowly radiated from Kraft's clothes. Since the clockwork bandage was damaged, the opponent was beaten to death and refused to let himself challenge Shou Lao, and Kraft didn't bother to pretend to them. White liquid poured out of Kraft's body, forming a set of black and white biological armor on his body, enveloping Kraft's whole person. As the Dreamland battlesuit with strong reproductive armor was worn out, Kraft took some time and added some new skins to his dream battle armor. He is now using the one that was planned for a long time, the Beast God General. The look of Ikarim Nihilabus. It's just that Kraft's operations caused Lei Gong to misunderstand further, thinking that what he had previously speculated was not wrong, that this intruder named Li Yi was possessed by some unknown existence. Mainly it is also the strong colony armor and the shape of the animal god general. It really doesn't look like a normal human being. It is quite normal to be regarded as a mysterious existence by the Thunder. Confirming the conjecture in his heart, the power of the iron fist in Lei Gong's body became more surging. The significance of their existence in Kunlun is to protect the safety of the world. Driven by the sense of justice and responsibility in his heart, as well as the power of the iron fist, Lei Gong's double fists shine. Succumb to death. The evil spirit outside. With a violent shout, Lei Gong rushed to Kraft again. No, how come I'm out of evil spirits? Wasn't it a bad idea before? Kraft, who didn't know the mental activities of Lei Gong, looked dumbfounded. Is the technique of tagging so skilled?